last shot is called the Martini shot, even by people who don't drink martinis.
Well, first of all, through God, all things are possible, so jot that down.
This town needs an enema.
That shit is the Mad Notes, written by God herself and handed down to the greatest band in the world.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live.
A lot of time over in the Sacramento, Santa Rosa area. And I'm a diehard 49ers fan, so.
There we go.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. All right. I like it.
Yep.
Yeah, we got to go Niners.
I lived in LA, so I'd always try to, I mean, that was back in my early 20s, so I didn't have much money, but if I could make it to Candlestick before that went away, I used to go to some games there. And then when I started to make money, I'd fly out a couple times a year and go see a Niners game at the new park. So
yeah, see, I haven't even been to Levi. I think it's still called Levi. I haven't even been yet. No, yeah. I need to go.
I kind of stopped going when the city turned into like a scene from Mad Max, because last time me and my ex-wife went, it was like chaos, dude. I was like, what happened to this city? It's crazy.
Yeah, because you probably have to fly into like San Jose, right, for Levi or something.
Yeah, well, actually, last time we flew into San Francisco,
okay.
We were staying in Union Square, and then we just drove. We rented a car and drove. But yeah, it was pretty rough at that time. Yeah,
it is. I try to avoid it, honestly. Like we're in one of the best parts about California, in my opinion.
Yeah,
like it's just so chill out here, and it's like we're close, like an hour from Tahoe.
Yeah,
or even more north than San Francisco is even better. But it's nice. Where are you from?
I live in Dallas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Man,
so
you're a Niner fan, dude.
I know, isn't that weird? So
you get yourself killed down there.
I grew up, I'm a 90s kid, which I'm sure you are too. So I grew up in New Mexico. So back then it was the Niners and Cowboys, and Albuquerque doesn't have a professional team. So it was like, you either like the 49ers or you like the Cowboys. Everybody liked the Cowboys. So I was just like, I'm going for the 49ers. And that year when I really got into football was when, it was the Steve Young year when they won the Super Bowl. So I've stuck with them ever since, man, through thick and thin.
Yeah, I remember it like yesterday. You're a good man. Good choice. Yeah. I like it.
Yeah, man. I mean, this season was a bit of a disappointment, a bit of a
brutal
pill to swallow. But I'm just glad the Kansas City Chiefs didn't win again, I guess.
Yeah. No, I am happy about that. That was, it was a blowout, which was okay, I guess. You know, I mean, it was boring for a lot of people, but I kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah, and in Dallas, the Chiefs were actually Dallas's first football team, so there's a lot of Chiefs fans out here.
Oh, were they?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
So the guy who owns them, he owned. They were called the Dallas Texans before the Cowboys were a thing, and then they moved to Kansas City. Dallas didn't have a team, and then that's when the Cowboys came to be. So fun little.
That's so confusing. Yeah, because you have then you eventually got the Houston Texans from I think it was they used to be the Oilers and they moved over. It's just
actually the Titans were the Oilers. So
was
they
it
moved them to Tennessee. Houston didn't have a team. So they're like, oh, let's go to a throwback to the first Texas team that we had, and that was the Dallas Texans. But it is confusing. You never know who to root for when you come here. But yeah, no, this is definitely Cowboys country. But everybody in this this realm has been over their heads with Luka, that whole Luka deal in the NBA. I don't know if you follow the NBA at all, but
I do. Yeah, we'll see. It could go down as one of the worst trades in NBA history, or we'll see what happens. I
know it seems like it's really hard to play with LeBron, but Luka's special talent. Everybody here's beside themselves, and then we got Anthony Davis, and he got hurt in the first game for the rest of the season. So
Luka is like 25. So here's what we're gonna do: we're gonna trade Luka, the top 3 player in the NBA, for a 31-year-old big man who's always injured,
always hurt.
Always, who's a great player, but I mean, to be honest, I'm a Kings fan, so I'm still pissed that I think it was the Marvin Bagley year we had the number 2 pick in the NBA draft. We passed.
Yeah, you had a chance
passed
to
on Luka, passed on Trae Young, passed on a bunch of players, and got Marvin Bagley, who's barely even in the league.
I know. It
anymore.
Was DeAndre Ayton was first, and then Martin Bagley, right? So then Luka went third.
Yeah, brutal. Yeah,
man. No, what's that like being a Kings fan? I remember, like in the early 2000s when basketball was awesome. That was fun because you guys had like Divac and
Mike Bibby, Peja.
Mike Bibby, yeah. That was, and you guys had that crazy rivalry with the Lakers and the Trailblazers and stuff. That was fun, dude. That was when basketball was awesome to watch.
Oh yeah, and that's really like the only sports experience where I'm in Dallas. It probably happens because you guys have had, with other teams, the Mavericks won the championship.
Yeah,
that was stuff. Awesome. But that was the one time definitely where I could feel just like a whole city. I don't know. It just felt so. I'd never felt that before. Like the town, it still ripples even to this day through the town. People still talk about those years, obviously, because we haven't had very many of them.
Yeah.
But like that was a wild time. I think I was in junior high. I was like in 8th grade.
Yeah.
Kind of around that time, 8th grade, freshman year of high school, kind of around that time, which is obviously like the perfect time for that also to happen. It's like you're impressionable, you're young, so you don't have kids or anything like that, so you can still be obsessed. And we were.
Yeah.
Plus it was like one of the most exciting teams in NBA history.
Right.
Arguably one of the best offensive teams ever. So it's just like, it's not like the Spurs teams where they were boring, but they were always winning.
Really good.
It was like an exciting, fun team, beating the Lakers. And then, of course, we got robbed, but that's okay.
Yeah, you did, man. And I remember what I always loved was because you guys had Vlade Divac, and that dude is like, man, somebody needs to make like a huge expose on him because that guy was like drinking all the time, like 2-pack a day, cigarette smoker, and still like going up against Shaq and
smoking at halftime.
Yeah, yeah. I miss those days, man. And that was like pre-social media, so it was like you said, the whole city was probably just a big buzz around there, and people were just beside themselves.
Yeah, we chanted, like, how sometimes you would have rallies in school. I'm sure you probably had those down there, but we had like a rally in 8th grade. I can remember it like it was yesterday, and the whole school was chanting "Beat LA."
Wow.
I don't remember where we were at in the Western Conference. It might have been during the Western Conference Finals, but it was just like a goosebumps, experience.
That's awesome.
I mean, I'd have to talk about because we don't get too many of those around in SAC, right? It's not.
Yeah, so who do you guys have now? You just have the Kings. You don't have a hockey team, right? So is it really just the Kings there?
Yeah, it's really just the Kings. We have the Sacramento River Cats, which is like a AAA team. Apparently, I think they're going to get the A's for a little bit.
Oh, really? Okay.
For maybe I know half a season to play in the River Cats Stadium until they move, I guess, to Vegas. I don't follow baseball too much anymore, but
I don't know.
Yeah, that is it. That's pretty much it. I actually recently, I moved back just a couple years ago.
Okay.
But that's pretty much it. Yeah, we don't have much, Cowtown,
yeah. That was one of the things that surprised me when I was out there. I was over by, I don't know if that place is still there anymore, but it was like a pig slaughterhouse or something like, so the whole city just smelled like pork rinds.
I wonder where.
It was just outside of Sacramento. I can't remember exactly. I mean, this was 20 years ago, so I remember I was there for probably a month and a half or so. And yeah, the whole, like, you'd go in, your clothes smelled like pork rinds. But yeah, no, it was those were good times, man. So
yeah, we went to a Bill Burr show recently, my wife and I, and Bill Burr, I'm sure you know Bill Burr, but he was like, what the hell is this place? He's like, I look at, because we were at Thunder Valley Casino. That was before they built that after you lived here, but Thunder Valley, it's a nice casino, like 15 minutes from me. And Bill Burr was like, what the hell is this place? It's just almonds and it's 110 degrees.
Yeah.
Why do you live here?
Yeah.
Because where Thunder Valley is, it's like the armpit of hell.
Yeah.
But where we live is super nice. But
that's cool, man. Yeah, I was when I lived in LA, I was in the Valley for quite a while, and so LA itself. I initially lived in Los. Are you familiar with Los Angeles at all?
Yeah, I mean a little bit. I've visited here and there.
I was in the Los Feliz area for a few years, and then I moved to the Valley, which is like frowned upon in Hollywood. But I didn't care. I was like, I'm I'm in my early 20s. I'm broke. I need to have multiple roommates, and so I moved to the Valley, and it's like 105 in the summer, and all the air conditionings in that area suck because it was LA and everything was built in like the 20s through 50s.
Just so window units.
Yeah.
Central.
Yeah, or if you did have a unit, it was like busted, it never worked well. You'd bring a HVAC person out to repair it, and it never they never got it working appropriately. Whereas in Texas, it's always hot in the summertime, so the AC units out here are pristine. I do like video work, for my actual job. And I had to do some stuff with people from England, and they came here and they're like, man, the air conditioning here is amazing. And I was like, yeah, well, you need it because it's 110 degrees in July. So
yeah, exactly. That's how it is in the Bay Area too. Nobody has AC or it's like barely works. But yeah, where we live, it's the same thing. Because it gets 110 here in the summer where I live.
Wow. Yeah,
but the AC
is dry, right?
It's actually not that bad. It's kind of in the middle. It's not super humid. It's not like the South. It's not like, South in the, South Carolina or anything like that, but it's kind of in the middle.
Yeah. My mom lives in Tucson, and, it's hot. It gets hot as hell here. But
dry desert though.
Yeah. When my stepdad passed away, I went out there. He died in the middle of the summer. So I went out there to help my mom with some stuff. And it was like 127 that week that I was out there. And my mom's like, yeah, but it's a dry heat. I'm like, I don't care. So it's an oven. It's so hot.
Yeah, no.
You can't do
Doesn't
anything.
make much of a difference. Like you're not sweating, but it's still terrible.
Oh man, it's so bad. So what do you do outside of this?
Yeah, so outside of the YouTube stuff and all that, I've worked in like the financial sector for a long time, mainly in banking and stuff like that. Right now, I do like some consulting stuff it's mainly like financial crime.
Interesting. Okay.
Like fraud because banks just in general kind of, obviously they have regulations that they have to kind of abide by, like government regulations. Mm-hmm. And if they don't, then they'll get, fined millions of dollars. So we just kind of like help them with just staying in compliance, really. If they find out that, Wells Fargo has somebody laundering millions of dollars through them or something like that, they're going to be like, that's not good. We're going to fine you a bunch of money. So we kind of just help them catch red flags, which rarely happens, but it happens. So
yeah, that's actually
kind of
cool.
what I do for that. But the nice thing is it's, I work from home and it's super flexible, so I can kind of, which I like. So that's a nice part of it. But
yeah, that's really cool, man. I don't think I know a lot of people in the financial game, but they don't do some. Usually it's kind of like, okay, it's a pretty boring job, but that actually sounds pretty cool. Do you have to do like full on audits and stuff like that, or are you mostly like, here's the game plan if these sort of things happen here?
Yeah. Yeah, well, my current job, I've been with my current company for a little over 3 years, and now we basically just advise them on their kind of auditing process.
Right.
I get put on different projects with different companies, just based off of kind of how it goes or what they need, and and sometimes it's more fraud related, sometimes it's like sanction related, and we're just going through red flags. So it could be super boring stuff. Just combing through, someone who's like 80 years old calls into a bank and says, hey, I have fraud on my account. And then we kind of are like, this is actually looking a little bit like maybe elderly abuse or something. Or there's more to this. That happens.
Yeah, man, that's fascinating. So what made you, what got you into like wanting to start a YouTube channel and talk horror movies specifically?
Yeah, great question. I actually, my journey's been kind of a little wild. My wife back in, so my wife went to grad school in 2013. Mm-hmm. And so she was studying a lot on the weekends and things like that, just doing her thing. She's a lot smarter than me. So she was kind of doing that thing. And I was like, whatever, like, I will support you. I don't know how much I'm going to help, but I will support you by just giving you the time. So that freed up a lot of weekends for me. And that was like 2013. And just before that, I discovered YouTube and YouTube videos way before that. I'm sure you did too. 20, probably like 2007, 2006 for me, just watching content or somebody in college sharing something stupid. But around maybe 2012 or so, or maybe 2011, kind of around that range, I was like, you know what? I really want to get good at Call of Duty Black Ops 1.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I am terrible at this game. I really want to get good at this game. So I was like, maybe there's some tips on YouTube. So I looked up some tips, and then I was like, this is kind of cool. You know, like the gaming space on YouTube, this is pretty cool. I like this. I like how people are not only just doing, you know, tips and stuff, but they're also sharing their stories, creating videos and editing and making it kind of entertaining.
Yeah.
Or just being entertainers. So for a while, I had actually done more gaming stuff on a different channel for a long time. And then that transitioned actually into Twitch, where I was doing a lot of Twitch stuff for a long time. And had some success over there, which was fun. Got partnered on Twitch, and yeah, just had a lot of fun just doing live streaming, mainly like entertainment, gaming. We talk about sports, whatever, but mainly gaming related. And then, you know how it is having kids. In 2018, my son was born, so that kind of slowed down a little bit, just the content stuff. And then eventually when my daughter was born, it slowed down even more. And then I just, you know, focused more on the family and work and things like that. And then about a year and a half ago, I kind of got the itch again. I was still creating just content and some other things, live streaming here and there when I could. But yeah, about a year and a half ago, I was like, what's something else I can do in the content space? Because I kind of feel like I'm one of those people, like, I feel like I will create stuff probably until I die. You know, even if there's no money involved, I don't care.
Yeah.
It's just fun to be creative. You seem like a creative guy, so I'm sure you understand.
Totally.
So I was really getting that itch to create again. And and then I just figured my passion for movies in general was a great place to do it. Not only just because there's so many classics that I would love to talk about, you know, throughout all the decades, but also the nice thing is, especially compared to gaming, is there's so many great movies coming out constantly. You know, almost every month we're getting something great at least, or something fun. So that would be fun to talk about. Whereas in the gaming space, which is a little bit different, yeah, you'll get new games every year, but there might only be one or two great ones, you know, in the fall or before Christmas.
Yeah.
But so my content journey kind of started in, you know, 2013, 2014. And of course, you know how it goes. Like that's not saying much, because the first couple of years is like janky as hell. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. And back then that was before really the advent of HD really helped stream things, move things along. So, you know, everything now is just, the quality's so good.
And it's so easy to be a content creator now.
It is.
Like, even just to have, you know, if you have a live stream, even just to have an alert pop up on your stream, you had to literally know how to code to put that into a software like OBS, just to have like a $1 donation came up from Bob. It was wild. Now with Elgato and all these companies, they make so many cool things that are so easy. Yeah. So yeah, it's been a wild journey, but it's been really fun, and I don't plan on stopping. So
I can tell, man. Like I think I came across your stuff probably when you first started your channel a year and a half ago or so. I think randomly one day it just popped up on my YouTube feed, and you didn't have many views or anything like that. And I watched one of your videos and I was like, this guy's got something. I mean, it wasn't like a overly produced video or anything, but you seemed to know what you were talking about. You had a likable personality. You have a very dry humor, which I enjoyed watching. And you were talking about one of my favorite genres in movies. So I was like, all right, I gave this guy a follow. And then I've kind of seen your channel grow and grow and grow, which has been pretty cool from, you know, someone from my perspective, you know, just kind of sitting back and going, hey, you know, I don't watch everything you put out. I mean, who has time, you know, when you got kids and you're making content, it's like, yeah, all your free time probably goes to it.
Well, and I think, I actually think you're a creator as well. I actually think it's important to really pick and choose what you ingest as far as content goes, just in my opinion, at least for my brain. I'm sure there's people out there that don't have to do this, but for me, if I ingest too much content in my particular area, which is, you know, mainly movies and stuff, it just bleeds so much into what I create, and it makes me less creative. It makes me come up with less ideas that are unique, I feel like, because my brain just doesn't work that well, where I can watch all these videos and not accidentally steal stuff or pull stuff from them. Right. You know, because we all want to create something that's kind of unique, not necessarily just for views or whatever, but just because that would be cool, right?
Yeah.
To make something new. So yeah, I appreciate you saying that. That's awesome. Yeah, so that's cool.
Yeah, man. I do outside of this. I've been a video editor, motion graphics artist, videographer, and stuff like that for years and years. And I was doing so much work for other people that finally one day, because I watched a lot of YouTube on my free time when I wasn't doing this. And I've always really been into movies and, talked movies with all my friends and things of that nature. And then one day I was like, I should probably just put some quick reviews out there for people. And then on Instagram, it really caught wind and grew. And then my YouTube, I kind of approached a little bit different. I'll put the short side out of my reviews, but then like my main channel, I'm mainly, I'll list out some maybe underrated movies, but I do a lot more commentary and stuff like that. So that's what I kind of like about being a creator is just talking about different things and finding and exploring different avenues and things of that nature.
And don't you just feel like, for anybody listening, if you're like us, at one point in time, we were like, man, should I do this? Should I not do this? Right. It kind of seems fun. Don't you just feel like you just should do it?
Yep.
Whether you're recording with your phone, you don't need a mic. You don't need a Shure SM7B. You don't need, just do it. Or if you don't have time to do long form content, just post a short, post a TikTok.
Yeah, exactly.
Which can take literally 1 minute to make. You can edit it on your phone.
Yeah, and that's actually what's kind of funny is, sometimes with my YouTube videos, it'll take me a couple days to edit. I'll put in graphics, make it really shiny and nice. And then I'll make like a meme on Instagram and it'll get 1 million views, and it took me 10 seconds. So you just never know what's going to be at. I don't really make stuff for views or anything like that. I just do it because it's something that gets me out of the day to day, and it's something I really enjoy doing. So I think that's the problem that a lot of creators have, is especially the younger ones. They've grown up in this era. You and I, this era came to be while we were already young men, so it wasn't something that we really had a yearning to do. And so now I think one of the things is like, yeah, you got to work really hard at this before anything really happens. You're going to suck really bad when you first start. Like I can't go back and watch some of my oldest stuff because I start to cringe. It's embarrassing for me to go back and watch, but I leave it up there because it's just like, hey, this was the starting point and this is where we are now. It's a journey and you get better the more and more you do it.
And that it's well said, and that really helps too with just like the ebbs and flows. If somebody cares about the viewership or the subs or whatever, especially it's such a comparison game sometimes, which is tough. Everybody suffers from that to some sort of an extent. But yeah, it really is, especially with the ebbs and flows. Especially early when I was doing more gaming stuff, that would really, really affect me. But I feel fortunate that I've been doing it for a longer time, and I've almost gotten like this is like a second life for me with content just in general, because that basically fizzled out and I kind of, focused on family. But it's such a marathon. It is really not a race, even for a channel like mine, October's great. Obviously I do a lot of horror content. So you're like, man, this is amazing. Love everybody's in the vibe of horror movies and spooky things, which is amazing. And then kind of December starts to roll around, or January and whatnot. Everything kind of cools down a little bit, which also includes viewers, which also includes subs. Yep. And you just, I mean, not that this is necessarily like an advice video, but if I had to give advice to anybody like that, it's like, it's like life. You got to just ride the waves. Yeah. You cannot get too high or too low about viewerships or subs or anything like that, because for everyone, even that dude you're watching with 20 million subscribers, they have months where they think their video with 1 million views is depressing them, Yep. And it's all relative, and it's just crazy. Wild.
It is wild, and it's an interesting timeline to be on, and that's kind of why I created this live stream. It's kind of more like podcast form, but I was like, there's a lot of creators I guess you could use the word admire, but
thanks, man. No,
yeah,
I'm kidding. Except for this, we made an exception this week.
Yeah, right. No. I like your stuff, dude. I mean, I think it's we'll get more into it as we talk a little more, but I created this because with the uncertainty of TikTok, there's a lot of a lot of people that I've become online friends with, I guess you could say, over the past couple of years. And some of them make their bread and butter on TikTok. And I was like, you know, there's a lot of things out there, but I don't see a lot of people in this realm bringing on other creators just to talk, just to get to know them, introduce them to your audience, you know, kind of spread the word. Because, like, yeah, I'd love to see everyone be successful at doing this, especially the ones who, like, I actually think put out good stuff. And I think you definitely put out good stuff. One of the questions I did have for you, though, was what made horror kind of your focus? Was that something where you just were like, hey, these videos that I'm putting out about regular movies, no one's really watching, but whenever I start talking about horror, which is, you know, kind of my thing, people seem to engage a little bit more? Or was it anything else that I didn't mention there?
Excuse me. That's a good question. Yeah, really good question. I think it's really important, first and foremost, especially if you're going to create content, long term, you know, I mean, if you're just going to do it short term for shits and giggles, then it doesn't really matter that much. But if you're going to do something long term and put a lot of work into it, and sacrifice things in your normal life, you got to really love what you're covering. You have to. So that was a part of the reason. Just going back, especially going back and making some of the videos since my channel started, I'm like, man, wow, these are, you know what I mean? These movies are timeless. Some of these movies are classics. Some of them are god-awful pieces of shit, but, you know, we love them too. They have their own little niche. But yeah, I think, yeah, so passion, first and foremost, the videos that I make, even a movie like The Monkey that just came out, you know, obviously that just dropped. And I was in a weird space with that movie. I really, really was going to review it, damn near ready to press record on my camera. And not necessarily because I think the movie's bad or I think the movie's the greatest movie ever, but just like, I don't know. There wasn't that real passion behind what I wanted to say about the movie. Could I ramble and shoot the BS about it? Yeah, of course. But that's part of the well, my wife was also kind of sick too. So it doesn't help. But
yeah, fair enough.
But I didn't really have like that burning like desire to talk about anything in particular with that movie. Some people might, and that's cool. Yeah, that's just an example of how I kind of run my thing. I try to make the videos that I really love making. Of course, sometimes it's going to feel like work, you know, when you're, especially my videos early on, I put so much work into some of them and, you know, it didn't always turn out that good, but
views and you're like, ugh.
Yeah, exactly. Going back to what you said earlier, you know, you mean, you make a 10-second TikTok and it does great, but yeah, I think, but also just to kind of talk about the space just in general and movies just in general, I think the horror space is in a really good place. And I'm not necessarily saying that 2024 was the greatest year ever in horror, because I don't think it was or anything like that. But I think especially just in this time of streaming and uncertainty with movie theaters and movie studios and everything like that, the horror genre is in a really good place. And it makes sense because it's the one genre especially where it doesn't cost a lot of money.
Right.
You know, it's not a lot of overhead for these studios and you can still make amazing stuff. And my reason for saying that is just making horror content. I know there's going to be great stuff coming. Plus, the horror fans are just a cool fan base.
Yeah,
just
they
a
are.
badass, cool fan base of people. Really passionate, really fun. And I feel like horror fans are the type of people that I always got along with at jobs that I had, you know? We'd shoot the, can I curse on here? I've already cursed a few times.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
We'd shoot the shit at work and, you know, but it's just a fun space to be in, you know? Do you feel similar about just the horror genre?
I do.
Right now?
I do. And yeah, I mean, I saw The Monkey and it was it was actually pretty disappointing. I saw it a couple weeks ago at one of the early screeners, and I remember I was hurting so much, and Osgood Perkins was involved with it, which I also thought Longlegs was a bit of a disappointment, if I'm being completely transparent here. So, you know,
definitely overrated.
Yeah,
I would say.
Yeah, you know, I think that's one of those things. Is
best movie of the year. You know,
like I went into The Monkey too because I was like, this movie looks crazy. Hearing lot of good buzz about it. And then I went into it and I was like, for maybe a third, the first act I thought was really, really strong in that movie. But the tone was just all over the place. By the end, man, I was exhausted. I didn't care much about anything that was happening in the movie. And and a lot of the humor that really worked at the beginning, they were trying to shoehorn it in at the end. And you're just like, ugh. So back to your initial question. I do think horror, like we were talking a little bit earlier, is that, in middle school, like all the kids talk about these days are horror movies. And I think, I actually think it's a good model for a lot of movies in the industry to replicate. Like everybody I've had on here, for the most part, since I started this, we've all come to a sort of general consensus that we all miss comedy movies because they don't exist anymore, really. And I've had some people, I had one person on who was really connected in the business, I guess you could say. And he's like, yeah, they're just not marketable overseas, right? Like they're not going to make any money overseas. Everything in Hollywood now is about the bottom line. And I'm like, yeah, but I mean, you could easily adapt the horror formula where you're making a movie for what, $12 million? It doesn't need to have these giant names in there. Just as long as it's the content, you get people talking about it, they're going to pay to go see that movie. Like even with Hard Eyes, the opening weekend wasn't that strong, and then the next weekend was even better for it. So word of mouth goes a long way with horror movies, which I don't, with like Captain America, for example, everyone's going to go out opening weekend to see it. But now it looks like, this weekend, as it comes out, it's going to have like probably one of the biggest drops ever for a Marvel movie. And so, the word of mouth of that movie isn't very good. So, people are just like, all right, well, I'm kind of sick of the MCU as it is. I'm not going to go see that movie. I'll wait for it to come out on digital or something. But there's the other side of the coin too with horror movies is that the thing I hate is like, I don't want to watch trailers with them anymore because they like with Companion, for example, I thought that was going to be, a horror movie, but they gave away everything in the trailer. And then when I saw it, I was like, I wouldn't really classify this as a horror movie. It felt more like a sci-fi thriller, I guess you could say. But I do feel like horror has a problem with giving away everything in their trailers, which I hate. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Oh, you're gonna get me started. All right, here we go.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, no, but I'm with you though. Yeah, you were talking about word of mouth a second ago, and that's exactly what they're trying not to do.
Right.
Which means that I get it. There are movies that are great and are like, okay, if we just rely off of word of mouth and we don't spend as much money on the marketing, and that could fail. I can see that, but it's almost like you're telling us that the movie is not good. People are not going to tell their friends about it because they're trying to give you everything in the trailer to just try to get that one ticket from you, not the second ticket. They don't want you to come back 3 or 4 or 5 times, right? But man, yeah, like you said, Companion. Yeah, 100% agree with that.
Yeah, man.
That trailer,
Yeah, and I liked Companion a lot. I really did. The problem I had with the movie is and this is the same thing that happened with Captain America. I was like, I was already ahead of the movie. As a viewer, so the whole time I'm watching the movie, I'm like, oh, when is this going to happen? But when you watch the movie, you realize that, I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but the big reveal that happens in the first act of that movie, they use that as their marketing. And you're like, oh, but this is actually supposed to be a surprise to the audience. So I don't think it's a good way to go into a movie already ahead of it. You already know what's going to happen before it happens. And I think that actually takes the wind out of the sails a little bit.
Yeah, I think for me, I already go to the movies like 25 minutes late on purpose.
Yeah, you want to miss all the trailers.
I want to miss all the trailers. And I think for me, I'm not even going to really do trailer reactions unless it's a special occasion. But even a movie, a perfect example too is a movie like Abigail.
Yeah.
I know people who didn't see a single trailer because they're not sickos like me who watch all these trailers constantly all the time, or used to.
Right.
And man, I just think to myself, if I didn't see a single trailer for Abigail, that movie, that came out last year, how cool would that experience have been?
Right.
And you might have loved it or you might have hated it. I don't know. But I thought it was, because of the trailer, it knocked the movie way down for me because, yeah, it was made well. Yeah, it was a pretty fun journey. It was bloody, had a good cast, but literally nothing was a surprise, you know?
Right.
Or not necessarily, because not every movie needs to have an M. Night Shyamalan twist, but when you're reading a book, you want to, it's a journey, right?
Yeah.
It's like life. There's just unexpected things. But if you already know, you can already watch a replay of your life, it's going to be kind of pretty bland.
Yeah.
You know?
Because you already know what's going to happen.
Yeah, trailers are just crazy, especially, companies like Blumhouse and things like that. It's
man. And what's unfortunate with Blumhouse is, man, they put out some absolute turds the past year or so. Did you see Imaginary?
Funny you mentioned that. I was actually out of town.
Okay.
And it was one of those where it was like, it's not a movie I'm going to go back and watch because,
right. And it was,
but I did see Afraid, which I think Afraid is Blumhouse, maybe?
Yeah, that's Blumhouse. That is
Blumhouse? Yeah.
Yeah.
But Imaginary with the little like teddy bear thing.
Yeah, and so they have this knack for making pretty cool trailers, because when I saw the trailer for that, I was like, oh, that looks pretty interesting. But then when I watched the movie, I was like, oh my god, this movie's terrible. It was almost embarrassingly bad. And then the Night Swim that came out before that, I mean, I knew it was a January release, and I was like, this might not be any good. But the trailer was pretty solid. But I was like, how good can a haunted swimming pool be? You know, I mean, that sounds like a 10-minute short.
That's like exactly what I felt too. Yeah, and and with Blumhouse, I feel like the state of horror overall is great, but I feel like a company like Blumhouse is almost taking advantage of that because they know the horror fans are so passionate, and they know they don't have to have crazy effects to sell a movie to us.
Right.
And I feel like they are kind of dipping their toe and testing how much they can take advantage of that. Yeah. By hiring inexperienced production teams, inexperienced directors who they can pay little money to, having a rushed production. They're kind of dipping their toe a little bit too much into how much can we be. It's almost like, we're both sports fans. It's kind of like, it's like the NBA All-Star game. It's almost like, are you supposed to try? Well, no, not really, but it's almost like a respect of the game kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
that's of respect of the movie industry, don't do that to us, right?
Yeah,
like try to come up with a really good story that you would, if this was the last movie you ever made as a company, you would be proud of it. You know what I mean?
Right. And I think with the emergence of A24 in the horror realm and Neon, I think Blumhouse is probably kind of going back and being like, all right, we need to kind of reevaluate what we got going on here. Because I know what was Companion Blumhouse? I think it was.
I don't think so.
Oh no, maybe so. Monkey's Neon. But yeah, thank goodness for Neon and A24 though, because it's almost at times the opposite. Right. Like they feel like passion projects that are. Whoever's making it, it feels like they're genuinely excited about making it. So, yeah. And who, one of the groups the duos, I guess you could say, who I'm really excited about are the guys that did Talk to Me. Did you see the trailer for, was it called Bring Her Back? That just dropped?
I avoided it. How is it?
It's fantastic, but it's a minute and it shows nothing. So I was like, all right, I'm totally sold on these dudes. So that's a movie I'm actually really excited for. But are there any like horror movies coming out soon that that really got you just hook, line, and sinker that's coming out?
Oh man, I'm a sucker. I'm a sucker for slashers, especially. Even though I know, okay, this is probably going to be your normal reboot or whatever. But yeah, July this summer we're going to be eating good, especially as horror fans. The I Know What You Did Last Summer reboot, I'm really looking forward to that. Do I think it's going to be a cinematic masterpiece or something like that? No, not necessarily. But by the way, did my video go out? Sorry if it did.
Yeah, you're I can still hear you, but I can't really.
It's kind of glitching a little bit. Okay, sorry about that. But anyways, Yeah, no, I think this year, who knows what's going to happen in the end, but I really do think horror fans are going to be eating good this year.
Yeah.
I mean, I know what you did last summer, the reboot. It should be fun, you know?
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to that one. 28 years later, really looking forward to that one.
That was probably one of the best trailers I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's a trailer that will give you goosebumps, man. You know, like it's one of those. I eventually gave in and I had to watch that one.
Yeah,
but
I'm glad you did, because that's actually a movie I wasn't really looking forward to, because I'm so tired of I guess the legacy reboots, you could say, or but then I was like, well, Danny Boyle's doing it, I should give it the benefit of the doubt. And then the trailer dropped and I was like, all right, I am sold. Like, you don't need to tell me anything else. I'm in. I don't want to see anything else about the movie. That looks fantastic.
Yeah, I cannot wait for that one. And I just think we don't get enough in the zombie subgenre lately.
Yeah.
As well. I don't know why. I feel like there was a time there where they were pumping them out left and right, especially after The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
TV shows, and it was hot.
It was
which
hot.
Unfortunately, I feel like it's kind of fizzled off a little bit. Maybe that's more of a personal thing because I just love it. But yeah, that one. I mean, another guilty pleasure definitely for me. Final Destination, Bloodlines.
Yeah,
really looking forward to that one. Which was, speaking of trailers, I did a trailer reaction for that one, but yeah, I've taken some heat for that, which I understand.
Yeah,
but it's called a trailer reaction for a reason, right? It's not a pre-scripted reaction. It's a in the moment kind of a thing, you know. So I said the trailer was mediocre, or I said it was average or mediocre, or whatever I said. I don't really remember. So I get the people who totally disagree with that, because it is a teaser trailer, and I'm a guy complaining about giving away too much and then complaining about that they didn't give us enough.
Yeah.
So I get it, but I think more so than anything on YouTube, sometimes your title will just piss people off.
Oh yeah.
You know, they don't even watch the whole video, because I said that to people in the comments. I'm like, you clearly didn't watch the video, because 99% of the video was me praising the franchise and talking about how much I loved the franchise. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I watched your trailer reaction on that, and I agreed with every single thing you said, because I love the Final Destination movies too. I think, what was it? It's been so long since they came out, but I think the last one I didn't care for, but the one before that was pretty good. Or might have them intertwined there. You still there? Uh-oh. Hello.
We've had 5 Final Destination movies. If I remember correctly, I think the fourth one, I mean, of course it's, you know, subjective, but the fourth one I think was bad. The fifth one was okay. I think the fourth one was the NASCAR one. That was, and then the fifth one had the big crazy bridge.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was the one I didn't like.
I believe, if I remember correctly. But anyways, yeah. It's is that a guilty pleasure for you?
Yeah, I didn't. Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially the first two. I mean, I like the third one. The third one's fun enough. But you know, the second one is like that movie that stuck with me my entire like early 20s. You know, every time you're driving your car, I still think about that. And then anytime I get on a plane, I always think about that scene when they're taking off from the first one. So yeah, no, I love the Final Destination movies. Those will probably be some that I show my daughter soon, because you know she's really getting into horror movies. I'm just like, I feel like a terrible parent, but I'm also like, man, I was watching like Nightmare on Elm Street when I was like 7,
I haven't. I don't have any felonies yet. You know, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I know, right? And I think it also depends too, just kind of how sensitive they are to it, because every kid's different. You know, some kids do great with scary stuff, and some, like my son, he loves it in the moment, but he'll have nightmares for a year from Goosebumps. You know,
nightmares, right? Yeah, that's how the youngest is here. She can't watch like a Godzilla movie. It scares her too much. But I will tell you she loves Megan. She was Megan for Halloween. She always wants to watch Megan. That's like her jam. So on the Super Bowl, when the Megan 2 trailer popped up or whatever, she's like, "Oh my god, that Megan!" I was like, yeah. So it's pretty funny. The middle one, he's a middle child. Just every stereotype possible. He could take him or leave him. He doesn't really care much about the horror movies. But my oldest, man, she's like, any horror movie that comes out, she's like, Dad, can we go see that? And I'm like, well, let me watch it first. I'll let you know if it's appropriate, you know. Like, a lot of my friends aren't allowed to watch these movies. I'm like, yeah, no shit.
Well, you're gonna be the cool the cool house.
That's just how it is.
That was the house that I would go to as a kid because my parents were very strict about rated R movies and whatnot. So I would go to the cool house. We were gonna get it eventually.
Oh, really?
Like, well, you can only imagine the stuff that they're being exposed to at school, especially with smartphones and whatever. So it's like, a movie like Megan or Scream. It's okay. Everything's gonna be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I mean, my oldest too, like she loves horror, but she loves musicals. Like that's her other jam. So like Wicked was like the greatest movie experience of her life. So, she has those. But yeah, actually, I tried to take her to Abigail, and she wasn't having that one. I think it was just too graphic for her. And I was like, all right, yeah, I'm going to step back. We're not going to do this anymore. But then there's been a few other ones that she really wanted to watch. And one of her friends, actually, I'm friends with her parents, and they were like, yeah, they can watch Smile. So they love the Smile movies. And I guess like Smile 2 was like all they talked about this past fall. Like all the kids at school.
Yeah, I bet it's kind of like that makes sense because that would fit. It's a very like jump scary type of a movie, which fits that age. They're like, they laugh at each other. Yeah, I got you.
Right. And then they had like a Sabrina Carpenter, type lead character, really big pop star. So a lot of the kids could kind of be like, oh, that's cool seeing, that side of it, I guess. So did you get honestly, a chance to watch the new
I did
Captain
not.
America?
I was actually interested in just checking it out. I was telling a buddy of mine, who's also named Chris, I was telling him the same thing. I was like, I might see it if I'm kind of getting the itch to go to a movie. There's not a lot of other movies I'm interested in. I might go see it, but I never did. But I mean, I don't know if you loved it or hated it or we're in the middle about it, but when it comes to a movie like that, I feel like, man, just seeing that movie on paper, and I could be totally wrong because I don't know, I'm not an expert about that subgenre, that realm, but okay, so you're gonna turn Harrison Ford into a Red Hulk, and this is somebody totally removed from the space. So where's Chris Evans? What's going on here? Captain America? What? And I don't know. What was the budget on that movie? 300-400 million?
Yeah, it's so they say it was 180 million, which I don't buy for a second.
I heard something about that.
They had so many reshoots on that movie. And then you get into that, well, that actually didn't happen sort of thing, but I'm just like, look, you guys spent $250 million on the Marvels. So there's no chance that I'm going to say you didn't spend $300 million on this movie. But yeah, I was very down the middle on it. It's too much homework. It's essentially a sequel to the 2008 Incredible Hulk, the one with Edward Norton. There's a lot of throwbacks to that movie, but there's also characters in this movie that you would have had to have watched the Falcon and Winter Soldier television series that came out on Disney Plus to understand who that person is. Because you'd be like, who is this guy? Like, why am I supposed to care about him? They don't really establish that. And I know that series wasn't really a big success for Disney Plus. And then the other part is, Chris Evans, if you watched Endgame, he handed the shield over to Sam. But you're like, oh, why is Sam all of a sudden Captain America? They didn't really make that clear either, like you were just mentioning. And then Harrison Ford is taking over for what's his name? William Hurt's character, who was playing Thaddeus Ross. He's president this time because William
is it
Hurt
the
passed away
same
a couple years
character,
ago.
same name, same everything, just a new actor? Okay,
it's the same character. Yeah, same character. Like, remember in Civil War when he pits those two sides, ones who work for the government, ones who are basically vigilantes. So that's Harrison Ford's character now, but they don't. I mean, they try to make it clear because they bring certain characters back and they make references to it and stuff. But you know, if I wasn't a huge Marvel fan, but I watched the movies, I liked them or whatever, I'd kind of be like, wait, what? Who's Harrison Ford's character again? You know, it wasn't abundantly clear. And then the biggest issue I had is something that we've already spoken about that movie, is that the big reveal in that movie is of the Red Hulk. It's
in the trailer.
It's towards the very end of the movie, but that's all the marketing. That's all the marketing campaign was Red Hulk. And if you watch the movie, you're like, oh, this is deliberately setting it up to be like kind of a big surprise, a big reveal at the end of the movie. So the whole time you're watching it, you're already ahead of the movie as the viewer. You're like, all right, well, when's this guy going to pop out? You know? And yeah, it's so that's one of those big things too. I'm like, man, could you guys, I guess they really needed to make their money back because the budget was just so astronomical. But that really kind of spoiled the whole movie, I think. If I didn't know that, I probably would have had a little bit more fun with it. But the problem is there's too much homework. It's too much exposition needed to really understand what's fully going on. And then the story was just kind of It tried really hard to be Winter Soldier, you know, just like a nice, tight political sort of thriller. And it just didn't really succeed at that. So it was just like I didn't hate it, but I also didn't love it. I'll forget about it. I already forgot most.
Yeah, I feel like this is kind of my take on superhero movies, and there's some great ones definitely, and I love some of them without a doubt. I'm not an expert at all whatsoever in that area though, but I want some more superhero movies or whatever you want to call them, movies with a little bit more grit, a little bit more grime. It doesn't have to be like the Batman movie, necessarily, where it's like a really dark kind of experience, which is a movie that I really liked. But just make it I want a movie that's and this is maybe a personal thing. I want one that's a little bit more adult. Doesn't need to be rated R, but I don't know if studios realize this, but movie tickets are like $20 damn. I don't think 14-year-olds are buying movie tickets for them and their buddies.
Family out.
The parents would love to go as well. You know what I mean? Like adults want to see this stuff. Yeah, and I know like Christopher Nolan's probably never going to make another one.
Of course they did.
And that's obviously on one end of the spectrum, something like The Dark Knight, but give us something with a little grit, you know, a little bit of stakes here.
Yes. I agree with that 100%. And speaking of like kind of in the horror realm of superhero side of things, like it'd be fun, if they did like a Justice League Dark.
So I was mainly
follow that comic book series?
I was mainly
when you were
like
younger?
a Venom guy, Superman, Wolverine, Cyclops.
Yeah.
Like those are my go-tos as far as comic books as a kid. So I didn't really know much about Justice League, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, so Justice League Dark was the mystical side of the Justice League. It was John Constantine, it was Swamp Thing, it was Zatara. So it was like all the ones that could practice magic, and there's a lot of horror and like fucked up things that happen and that. So like if you could get like someone like Guillermo del Toro or something to direct it, that could be freaking amazing. But I watched. Did you watch the latest Hellboy movie? Because that's a character I absolutely love in the comics, and they tried to go more horror route with this latest one, but the budget was peanuts, and I didn't much care for it. I mean, I got absolutely blasted online for not liking that movie by the hardcore Hellboy fans. Because it was like, hey, you didn't read the source material, so you can't say anything. You don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, well, that's the dumbest argument I've ever heard. Like, did you read all the Lord of the Rings books before you went and watched the movie? Like, that's just an absurd argument as far as I'm concerned.
Did not. No, I have not seen it, unfortunately.
Did you watch it?
How to piggyback off of what you just said, how is that space as far as creating content? Because I have made some videos and just talked about movies like Dune a little bit and dip my toe into that type of a passionate fan base. And man, it gets a little wild if you're not, super neckbeard about everything.
It's Yeah, yeah. You know, it's weird. Like I don't really like the term toxic fandom. I think that's kind of one of those magazine mainstream media copes, I guess you could say. But you know, if you say something about a franchise that people are absolutely, you know, ravenously passionate about, they will come with pitchforks. But you never know. Like, so last year, I don't know if you saw the Netflix movie with Adam Sandler. It was called Spaceman. Okay, so it was kind of a, I don't know, artsy sort of
Yeah, it kind of looked interesting.
You know, he's by himself a lot, and he starts hallucinating. Yeah, yeah, and it was interesting, but I just gave a very, you know, didn't love it, didn't hate it movie. I was a little disappointed with it. And I gave it like a 6 out of a 10, you know, like nothing. I didn't think much of it.
That seems fine for a movie reviews. Like that. And like how would you expect that movie to be like The Martian or something?
And
you know,
yeah, exactly. And it's a very introspective, like, you know, it's far, there's a lot of layers to the movie, I guess you could say, but I didn't think anything of it. I just was like, oh, this might get, you know, like if I put a short out for a review on a movie, I usually get like between, if it's a movie like that, you know, 4,000 views or something like that. Like nothing crazy, but you know, a little bit of engagement. People will say things. Well, that one got like 500,000 views, and I swear to God that reaction to it, I was like, this is like should be studied for dead internet theory, because the amount of people that told me I was too stupid to understand the movie was like, I couldn't believe, dude, I have to have like 5,000 comments on there of everyone telling me I'm a fucking moron. And I was just like, wow, you know, you just never really know what's going to pop off. But I didn't expect that movie, which has like a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. I was just like, hey, you know, his character was kind of an asshole. Carey Mulligan, who plays his wife in there, she's kind of an asshole. I brought those 2 points up, and they were just like, well, you don't, you know, and you just never really know what's going to set somebody off. But also, it got so many views from that one where I was like, I feel like half, if not like 3/4 of these comments are just bots. It was like one of those things where it's like that I don't know if you're familiar with dead internet theory, but it basically seemed like it was getting a lot of negative comments, and then all of a sudden all the bots from like India and Russia and stuff just start repeating, because I'd get like, you know, 50 of the exact same comment, you know, bro's just over here
they're typing in how would an American talk into whatever AI system that they're using.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'd hear ones where it's like, what's bro yapping about?
It kind of sounds like my comments on the Final Destination one, man. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I did not get 500,000 views at all, but that is, I know that is crazy. It's a wild space, but people don't realize Chris can handle it. I can tell. We grew up in a section of the internet just in its existence where it was a wild place. People yes, people say toxic things nowadays,
it was the Wild
but
West.
It was a full-on hobby for every kid growing up in the 90s and whatever to just you just took toxic. People would just be as toxic as you could possibly imagine all the time. And it was, I don't know, there was something about it. It was different. It was, it just doesn't affect me at all. The negativity at all.
It doesn't do anything to me. But that's, you know, I got my daughter a cell phone this past year because, you know, she's starting to stay home by herself and things like that. So I was like, I need to get in touch with you. But my wife and I have a very strict no social media until you're 18 in this household, which if I just laid that on her at her age, because all her friends have TikToks and stuff, she probably would have fought back a little bit and tried to find ways to do it. But I've had that policy for her. Like, you know, I've been talking about it for years, since she was maybe like 5 or 6. So she was fully cool with it. And, you know, I hate it because I kind of got to nanny her cell phone use a little bit just to make sure that she, you know, she has to ask permission to download apps and things of that nature. But I was like, and I told her, I actually brought her up here one time and was like, hey, look, this is a movie I didn't like that a lot of other people liked. Look at the things that they're saying to me on here. And she was reading some of them and her mouth was like wide open. She didn't understand. She's like, why? And I was like, that's just, people feel like they can say whatever they want to say on the internet to me or to other people. It's not just me. I'm not just I'm not just being singled out here. I was like, I'm a 40-year-old man. I can handle this stuff. This means nothing to me. You're a 12-year-old girl. If people were talking that way to you, there's no chance you could handle that. Like kids that age just have no idea how to handle that sort of,
she didn't grow up in the craziness like we did, Sorry, I'm just trying. This is a backup, but
right.
But don't mind me. Yeah, she that's good though.
Oh, you're good, man.
Oh, I can't even get this going.
Well, that's one of those things too that you're going to have to navigate pretty soon with your kids, is because like we deal with it on a day-to-day basis, but this is so fresh and new and something they're growing up with that you're just like, all right, well, I can give you a lot of advice, but you're going to have to see how these things play out before you can
I think it's definitely smart. I think we've talked about the same thing when our kids get a smartphone, at least 16, because your brain's just so impressionable and it's tough to deal with.
Yeah. It really is.
Yeah.
Especially for young girls. I know it's not the best. Listen, like I'm on my phone too much sometimes too. I usually try to take a break from it on Sundays and just spend time with the family. But, adults can barely handle it. So, for young kids, it's really bad. But I've seen reports and stuff, what it does to young girls' brains. And it's just insane, man. Because, when we grew up in the 90s, we had those People magazines and Maxims and stuff like that. And girls were always trying to compare themselves there. But now on the internet, you don't know what's real. So it's like you could be seeing a fully AI rendered person up there, and a girl will be like, oh my God, how do I get that sort of body? And it's just, it's really difficult. Not good for definitely.
And all we can really do is kind of just try to be as understanding as we can, because obviously we're not in their shoes per se. And it's like, you want to protect them as a dad as much as you can, at the same time, not shelter them. And it's, I think it's a smart move, especially with, even we were talking a second ago about the movie Afraid. Did you see Afraid? It literally, like that moment in the movie where somebody creates like an AI thing, if I remember correctly, using her face, and then they put it onto something and then spread it around school. It's just how brutal things can get. It's just so different nowadays.
And
I bet.
And I've actually heard of cases like that happening,
like just in the
at
local news or whatever. Something's happened, or
no, I actually, I don't know where I saw it. Maybe it's on Twitter or something like that. But I've heard stories of like at a high school, one girl they AI her face onto another person that was like in a sex tape, and the girl ended up like unaliving herself or something like that. So it's like there's a lot of scary crap out there with the AI, and that Afraid movie, I didn't think it was that great, but there were some of those parts where I was like, actually, that's actually definitely a pretty good point.
Exactly. They did have some stuff like that, like you said, that did make sense, and especially a younger crowd could understand, almost like they're advocating you not to do it as well, which, I respect that. I respect that also. Let's test this one more time. I guess that's okay.
Yeah.
That's decent. Sorry.
Yeah.
Backup camera, sort of.
Yeah.
But
good,
yeah, exactly.
Backup
it's
camera.
it's a wild time, the social media space. But what's probably the most toxic fan base you've encountered? Star Wars, MCU, horror, Star Wars?
Yeah. MCU, MCU when I first started doing this was pretty bad, especially when I was reviewing like She-Hulk or some of those earlier Disney Plus series. As of late though, I've shit on a couple things and they've been kind of right on board with me. But I've been doing it for a little while, so I think I'm starting to garner some people that come back and watch a lot of my stuff, so a lot of people are familiar with me. But when I was new to it, it was different. But Star Wars, they'll come out of the woodwork. Like I actually, it's one of my favorite videos that I ever did for the Acolyte. I shit all over it. I was ridiculous about it. I even put on like this, where is it? Here it is. I put on like this nose and was doing like a whole thing because I was like, oh, people are going to come at, and they did come after me. But most of the people were like, that was hilarious. At least you were like, you had a good sense of humor about it. That's one thing I do find interesting though. No matter what, you know, I joke. I'm sure you've watched some of my stuff. Like I joke around a lot, but man, so many people on the internet would be like, well, and they'll get pissed about something I said. And I'm like, that was clearly a joke. And then they'll just be like, oh, well, then it wasn't very funny. And I'm like,
the inability to recognize nuance just in general or a joke is so like you'll see so many posts on Instagram that are clearly satire. Like this human, they don't think this way. It's obvious. They are right. And then you'll see comments where people are dead serious. Yeah. You know, they're saying some very serious response, and it's like, oh yeah, that just shows who you are. You know, in a little bit. But speaking of what you said a little bit earlier, man, I really, I'm sure you're the same way, but I really hope with a new Star Wars movie, which, you know, they're definitely going to make a new Star Wars movie, obviously, but probably continue Rey's storyline like they've already teased. But man, I really hope they don't add in characters too much from all these different TV shows, like you kind of mentioned with the latest Captain America movie. Because I am a little bit worried about that though, because like my son, for example, he's really into Star Wars, which is awesome. Love that. Really into Star Wars Legos, but occasionally, you know, he'll get something from a friend or a birthday or whatever that's Star Wars related. And I'm like, honestly, he'll ask me about the character or something. And I'll say, honestly, they have so many shows now. You feel like an idiot, you know, because, you know, back in the day we would know everything about Star Wars because it was,
oh yeah, I mean, like you and me, that was what we grew up on. I was telling the kids, I got them into Indiana Jones, and the boy loves Indiana Jones. Like he thinks he's like the coolest character ever. And then I showed him and then we both watched the last one in the theater, and he was so disappointed. I know that he's at that age where he really likes.
He's an easy critic,
no matter how bad they are. But he was like, that didn't.
Just eat it all up. Yeah.
Do you remember being that age where you loved everything you watched? Yeah, eating it all up. And so, but I remember the look on his face when that movie ended, and he was just like, he was so confused because the Indiana Jones that he grew up was like this badass, smart ass, good with the ladies, really smart, it's sort of character. And then this one, he's like a depressed old man who's like mourning his son. He's divorced. He lives in like this crappy little apartment. He's a drunk. And he was kind of like, wow, like my hero is kind of just this old grumpy dude who like, I don't really want to watch a movie about, you know, his brain was kind of spinning with it. He's a real analytical kid. And so I was just like, all right, well, we don't need to watch that one anymore. Let's just watch the old one so you can always keep that memory of who Indiana Jones is. And that's kind of how I feel like a lot of things have gone nowadays with these franchises. Is like they make them go on for so long to where you used to really be, they used to be something special to you. And now you're just like, you know, if someone were to name a certain character from a Star Wars, I'm like, I don't know who that is. You know, and that never used to be. And
speaking, I mean, right on that same topic, series. I mean, this is recent news. I think it was yesterday or the day before, Amazon buying the James Bond franchise, man. And I was just talking to my wife and my mom about that because they're also big fans of, I don't know if you're a big Bond fan also, and we were just talking about that too. I mean, I was probably doing most of the talking because I was just yapping my gums, but like usual, but yeah. I was just like, man, this is scary, you know, just as being a Bond fan, because I'm just seeing the Star Wars shit in my face. And, you know, I'm usually the type of guy, I'm like, you know what, the Halloween franchise, you know, if they want to do a reboot, remake, whatever, just give me more of it. I will take it, man. But once you start going into all these different areas and it's kind of crazy. Yeah. James Bond shakeup, Amazon control the franchise, which I think the Broccoli family has had control of it for basically forever. 60. But we were talking about also just years, James Bond. The Bond movies have always been very similar to, obviously, to Star Wars and some of the others. But I mean, Star Wars more so because there's a million Bond movies, but it was always an event for a Bond movie. I mean, they did pump out quite a few with Daniel Craig, but still, it was an event. It was like, whoa, there's a new Bond movie. Be ready. Like, this is, especially when they had a new Bond, like that was even more of a big event, you know? Pierce Brosnan, obviously Daniel Craig recently. Those were, I remember those most recently in my head because those are most, you know, just my age. But now I'm starting to feel I'm scared because that is something that doesn't exist with a lot of these IPs in movies, is the event, that big event. There's very few. Indiana Jones was always one of them for many years, and that's obviously dwindling very fast.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about the whole Bond thing?
Yeah, it is. And the thing, so that's kind of how I feel. You know, there's a lot of problems with the movie industry now. And one of the big issues, I think, is how Amazon and like, it's kind of like what Google did. They just, YouTube was out. Oh, that's cool. Let's buy it up. Like, it feels like everything's kind of being monopolized at this point, where it's like, I feel like pretty soon these big corporations are going to own the actors. They're buying up properties for everything. So like Lord of the Rings to me is like one of my absolute just favorite things in the world. Like, I love the books. I've read all the books. I grew up on it. Those movies still hold up to this day. They carry so much weight with them, even CG wise. When you go back and watch it, like, damn, dude, these movies came out over 20 years ago.
It's like, it's kind of like
better than
Park.
anything I've seen this year. It's insane. Yeah, it's insane. Those movies were crafted with such care and love to the person that created them. And then now with the Rings of Power, you watch it and you're like, oh man, that's this uncanny valley, like crappy version of like Lord of the Rings fan fiction. And it makes you not care about it anymore. And with James Bond, I agree with you. The thing I'm scared about with that is I felt like that was one of the few franchises we still had left that was basically an indie movie with a blockbuster budget. So they could kind of do whatever they want. I wasn't a huge fan of the last one, or the last two, I guess. But I was like, they still had independent ownership. And then now doing this, I'm like, I can see it now. They're going to put out a TV show. They're going to put out a bunch of different movies. They might put like a straight to Amazon movie of like some side character. And then they might tie that side character into like a big budget, theatrical release. And it's just gonna oversaturate it, man. It's gonna make James Bond. It's gonna put it in the same.
And people might say, "Oh, you're overreacting. These are movies. Like, grow up. Like, it's not real things." But some people fail to realize that art is real. Art is one of the most important things on this planet, in my opinion. Yeah. So that kind of news, or even you just talking about it, is similar things that I had in my head. It genuinely kind of makes me sad for that very reason, because movies have genuinely changed my life in a lot of ways. So when I see something like that, you just get kind of potentially be ruined, it makes me very sad for the people who are not going to have that experience that's essentially life-changing. Think of the music that changed your life, or whatever, the theater, or whatever it is. Sucks, man. Right. Really sucks. And James Bond might not be the greatest example for me to say that with, just because they've had so many movies, right? It's not. But still, just that lack of an event in the movie space is a part of what's happened, right? It's just, I don't know. It's crazy.
Right. And then, with just the current state of things we're in, if they make James Bond like a black woman, or, a woman of color or something like that, I mean, just the outrage from the rage tubers is just going to be next level, to the point where it's not going to be enjoyable for just anybody else who wants to watch it, even if they make a good movie. So it's one of those things where, yeah, it feels like, I get it from their perspective. They've held on to it for so long, and they said they still are going to be involved with James Bond, but Amazon calls the shots now. So that's the problem that you really have with it. It's that whatever Jeff Bezos even went out on X and is putting out a poll, and he's like, who do you guys want to see cast as the next James Bond? And, almost every comment's like Henry Cavill, and it's like, I bet that'd be awesome. That'd be cool. I'd be intrigued if that's the route they went, but I don't know. It doesn't. No,
it really doesn't, because
a good taste in my mouth.
There were still so many of those, or not that many, but there were still movie franchises like that. They were still, like you said, like kind of pure. We still had some of those that existed. Star Wars got taken by Disney. Yeah, and then we know what's happened with that, good and bad. There's been some great stuff, and there's also been some, and some great stuff too.
Yeah, there's been some good stuff.
Man, just that pure. And the Broccoli family and all of them have been very picky, very particular, which I love, I mean, just to talk video games for a second, who hasn't heard of Grand Theft Auto? The reason why Rockstar and Grand Theft Auto, part of the reason is they've made such a iconic, great franchise is because of that exact reason, They take their time. They delay it as long as, if it needs to take 20 years, they will take 20 years.
I was going to say they take their time. They don't care. Yeah. I mean, there's that running gag right now. It's like, oh man, we got such and such event before we got Grand Theft Auto. It's like it's a whole joke in and of itself. But yeah, you're right. That's the thing I'd love to see, I guess, the movie industry kind of go back to. Is because there's one of the biggest problems outside of the AI angle in a lot of things is, I hate going to the theater. I mean, I see a lot of stuff in like critic screenings and things of that nature, but I hate watching a movie and then 2 weeks later I can just download it at my house. And I understand it. I think it's actually a good strategy for like smaller indie films because you really want word of mouth ruminating. But what I'm afraid what it does with these bigger films is it completely strips it of any longevity. Like Christopher Nolan is actually a master of this. He's one of the few that's left. But like with Oppenheimer, it came out the same weekend as Barbie. And then you couldn't get that movie on digital until they released it on physical media like 6 months later. So I think what's happening is you get these big movies out there, people go see it in the theater, and it strips away any word of mouth. It makes people not miss these movies, and then you don't have to market it all over again. So with Oppenheimer, it had big legs going into the theater. Everybody was like, when am I going to get to watch this at home? He made them wait, and then when it came out on video, it was like the biggest release physical media that year. One of the biggest, I think, of the last 5 years, physical media wise. And then people started talking about it again, and then it went into the Oscars and won all those awards. So, I like his strategy because you could tell, like, yeah, that dude is a huge filmmaker. His movies make a ton of money, but he does what he wants to do, and he respects the craft of film. He still shoots everything on film, and you could it's almost like just a love letter to the medium that he fell in love with. And I don't feel that anymore with younger people, people younger than you and me. Like, we fell in love with movies, and social media is kind of, it's basically gotten rid of celebrity culture, I think, in this country, or at least it's changed it. But with movies, it's really made, I don't know. I don't know a good way to maybe articulate it, but I think it's really mixed the two together to where you just the movies don't have the same buzz that they used to. They need to make $1 gazillion right off the bat, otherwise they're failures. And that's what I think. That's where I think horror is kind of saving the movie industry to a certain extent.
Yeah, especially like we can sense the anxiety from the studios in the marketing campaign. It's like they're nervous about it, so they want to give us everything in the trailer. They're trying to shove it down our throat, and then that makes us think like, oh, this must not be good. because you have people like Christopher Nolan who knows his movie's great.
Yep.
He's, and it's not, it's just,
yep.
I just love supporting them. I mean, obviously we all support them because they make so much money, but yeah, we just need to continue supporting people like that who it genuinely comes across on screen. Even somebody like a Jordan Peele, in my opinion, as well. I mean, if you listen to any interviews of him or Christopher Nolan or Spielberg or anybody else, it's going to be, you just feel it, man. You just feel it. And we've gotten into this realm now with Hollywood. And of course, Hollywood has always been a predatory space in so many different ways, preying on the people in productions. And I'm just referring to underpaying directors and trying to get the cheapest product possible. But it's definitely, I feel like, gotten worse. And obviously a lot of that has to do with COVID, just because that was such a scary time for everybody.
Yeah.
But it's wild. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. And that's the thing I've seen, I feel lately, is they readjusted their model for COVID, which made sense. You couldn't go to the movie theaters, but they haven't changed it since then. Everything's more expensive now. It's like, oh, well, no one's going to the movie theaters now. And I'm like, yeah, but when I take my kids and my wife, I'm spending $100 just to watch a shitty movie. Like I could easily just download it at my house and watch it for $20, a fifth of the price. So they need to find a way to utilize VOD. It's there, sure. But like I was saying, I think it works better for indie films. But like these big movies, they need to do something, because when you go to movies now, people are on their phones the whole time. You got 25 minutes of trailers beforehand, and it's expensive as hell. And I feel like they haven't made any changes to where to get people excited about.
I personally kind of feel like, and I'm just thinking this on the fly, I haven't really thought about this ahead of time, but I kind of feel like it's not necessarily the movie theater's fault. It really all stems back to the studios and the products that they're giving. Because, I mean, are there things that the movies or the theaters, are there things that they could try, or tell people when the previews are going to end, when is the movie really going to start, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But these are like peanuts compared to the back end of what's happening with the studios and the products that they're making. Could they put you into seats where water sprays in your face and your seat shakes and whatever? Like, yeah, of course, but 3D, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's like that's not the root cause of the issues, Yeah. And it's almost like we talked about comedy a little bit a second ago, how comedy over the last decade, especially, has 15 years, whatever, has swayed so far into, we're too scared to offend you. Movies have swayed way too far, mainly because of COVID, into, oh man, we're so scared about making money. We need to put this onto streaming. We need to get people are so lazy nowadays. Come on, guys. Everybody, in the span of 1 year, 2019 to 2020, everybody got extremely lazy. They refused to go to the movie theaters. And it's like, that's not necessarily the case. It's because you're conditioning us that the movie's going to be available in a month. The movie's going to be available in some cases. If the movie's kind of crappy, it's going to be available in weeks. You're just conditioning us. It's you're telling us, we're both parents. Yeah, you're whatever a lot of times, if you condition your kids to be very used to screen time or whatever the hell you want to talk about, they just get used to it. That's just their life. And they just got to make better movies, man. Less and better.
They do. Yep. Less. And that's the thing, is I watched a lot of great movies this past year, but nobody else did. So I'm sure you hear this a lot too. I get bombarded with it, with a lot of people that don't do the same things as you and me. They're like, yeah, they just don't make good movies anymore. I'm like, that's not true. You just don't watch any good movies. And I'm like, and that's not your fault. You just don't know that they're out there to watch. So like, I think I saw you put something on Instagram about The Brutalist. You're like, oh yeah, I was planning to go see it. Then I saw it was 3.5 hours. Like, I don't have time to sit there and watch a 3.5 hour movie. I'll just wait till it comes out on demand. And And that makes sense because that movie is ridiculously long.
Oh, dang.
It even has
maybe now I'll go see it so I can go pee or something. But yeah, and we grew up in the days of, of course, Dances with Wolves.
Yeah.
What is it? How, the It miniseries, Braveheart, et cetera, Titanic, whatever. These are 3-hour movies, but these are some of the greatest movies ever.
Yep.
Yeah. Just all-time masterpieces in every sense of the word. So it's kind of like, am I banking on The Brutalist, which might be a really good movie? Is it a masterpiece? I don't know. But more so has to do with just being a dad, and it's just so limited. Your time is just so limited. But have you seen The Brutalist, by the way?
It's time.
Did you like it?
I get it.
Okay.
Yeah. That's good. It's good. I wouldn't say it's like comparable to those other movies.
I've heard good things.
I wouldn't say it's a masterpiece, but it's a very good movie. Definitely worth your time. Yeah, definitely worth your time. Adrian Brody's fantastic in the movie, and I'm sure you followed some of the issues that have happened.
I've heard. Yes, I've heard about it. I don't know the details. What happened?
So it's an interesting conversation. I could lay it out for you, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on it. So, and apparently, so it depends on who you listen to, but because the director's saying one thing, the editor's saying something different. But they speak Hungarian in the movie, particularly Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones. And apparently what they did is they used a certain AI tool to kind of flesh out some of the dialect. So specific words that maybe the actors weren't pronouncing exactly correctly, because from my understanding, Hungarian's a very difficult language to master. So it just went in and with a fine-tooth comb and fixed some of the things that they were saying, which they came out and they're like, yeah, we did that, but no one lost their job over it. So some people have really hot opinions on it. And I'm kind of like, it seems like a tool that they didn't necessarily need to. I mean, we're Americans. I don't speak Hungarian. I wouldn't know the difference. But, I guess if they wanted to be, if they really wanted to be true to the language, I guess it makes sense. But then the other issue, and this is the one that I think more people have a problem with, is, there's a lot of architecture in that movie. And there's apparently a few renderings that were actually done by AI and not by, someone else. So that's where people are like, all right, I actually have an issue with the generative stuff. The director's like, no, that didn't happen. But the editor was like, oh yeah, he's the one that came out and was talking about it. So I guess it just depends on who do you believe. So I was actually curious, and I've asked a few other people, like, do you have any hot opinions about AI these days? Because before you answer that question, I have one thing about it that I'm kind of at the point, because I watch so many movies, especially streaming movies. I'm worried that even if they're not using AI, so much stuff that comes out is just pure crap, from the writing to the directing to everything, that in my mind already I'm like, this was done by AI. Like I'm convinced of it. So that's kind of why I'm like, if Hollywood wants to embrace it, they went on strike, and that was one of their main things, was like, we don't want to use AI, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, if you guys come out and reward someone for using it, that's where I have the issue, because you just look like a bunch of fucking hypocrites. Whereas you could just be transparent and be like, yeah, we use it as a tool, but we don't put anyone out of work or whatever.
Yeah, and some people don't realize that when you look outside your window on your street, people used to have a job where they would light those street lamps by hand. Innovation always happens, and humans always find a way, right? When cars are eventually gone, or they're automated, or whatever the hell, all the people in the automotive industry will work somewhere else. But that's kind of a little bit of a different conversation. We will always find a way. It always really sucks in the beginning, but we always adapt and evolve, and we have to do that. Try to do that together as best as we can, and help those people as best as we can. Man, I think with the language stuff, kind of like you said, I mean, that doesn't really seem like a big deal to me. I mean, it is kind of funny that they had to do that, because there are so many movies where the language or the accents don't make any sense. Everybody's British, and we're like in Rome. You got freaking Denzel Washington chilling,
in Russia. Yeah, Rome.
Yeah, I'm watching Bridgerton and
bro.
Nothing makes sense at all in the movie as far as so many different things. And you just, it doesn't bother me. I laugh and I just watch the movie. Is it entertaining? Is the dialogue good? Does it make me laugh or cry or whatever? But yeah, AI, I don't have any necessarily hot takes, I would say, about AI. I'm a big fan of innovation. But with that said, I don't want all of my streaming movies to have a full soccer stadium of just AI people and an AI script. And because creativity is definitely one of those things that AI is not there. I want things that are new, things that are fresh, things that are unique as best as I can. And I feel like with AI, that's going to be really limited. That's going to be really, really hard.
I think it's good for like a research tool.
Yeah.
It's good at helping kind of go through with a fine tooth comb instead of Googling something. You could be like, tell me about this specific
Dude, I love
topic.
I love. You probably use it. It sounds like it. That Google thing that shows up now at the top. That thing's cool as hell, and it's pretty spot on.
Oh yeah.
But do I want that? Yep. Do I want that robot to sing me a song?
There's things where
No, I don't. But
no. Yeah, and some of it feels pretty gross. Like if you're letting a robot write your script for you,
you're not a true movie fan.
I don't know. It takes away because we were speaking earlier about how art. Yeah, and how art is, it's important. It's kind of the human condition. It's a good way for us to use it as escape or to use our imaginations and stuff. And I saw a study or something the other day that was saying that people that use AI now, I mean, they have zero critical thinking skills. It's basically just they're turning into themselves. They're turning into like, androids. So it's, there's problems there and it's not going away. So it's like they need to find a way to embrace it and just be transparent about it. That's really my big thing is like, hey, how are you guys going to use AI? And so apparently after this year, or maybe I think 2026, in order for a movie to be considered for the Academy Awards, they need to put whether they used AI or not in there. Like it has to.
So all of the streaming service movies won't give a shit, is what you're saying, because they're not going for awards.
Yeah, pretty much. Dude, the streaming movie hell that we're in is just. I was telling my buddy the other day, I was like, it feels like. You remember when you'd go to Blockbuster when we were younger, and there was like a gazillion Steven Seagal, like straight to video VHS movies you never heard of and nobody watched. I was like, that's what we're getting now, just with bigger budgets and like A-list.
That's
actors.
The crazy thing is the
really
A-list actor part, dude.
It's all the same.
Like we were always used to as a kid, like. Such and such he's kind of fallen off. So now he's pumping out these shitty movies all over the place,
Right.
Whatever. The Three Ninjas 19 or something, he's we understood that. You fell off or maybe you had a scandal or something, but we're seeing the best of the best in their prime making these terrible movies. Obviously I'm sure it's money or something going on.
Awful.
But I don't know. It's just, it's a wild time. I did not see the new movie with Jamie Foxx and Cameron Diaz. I'm sure you saw it. Was it terrible? And she came out of retirement for that.
Yeah, terrible.
I'm sure I paid her, I think it was like 25, 30 million or something crazy.
I know. She was gone.
Which I guess they can afford.
Sure.
I guess.
And
that's a lot of $15 subscriptions,
I don't know
dude.
How? They throw so much.
Right. I've heard good.
Did you watch?
No, it's on my list.
It's
on my list. I've heard good things about it. Did you?
Okay.
What'd you think about it?
Yeah,
one of the better ones. Okay,
it's a better streaming movie. It still has. I'm conflicted about it.
Yeah,
the CGI is ass. That's probably one of my biggest issues with the movie. But it's like three stories in one. And the love story is actually the strongest part of that movie, I felt.
Oh, yeah.
It was really good. It was kind of... Did you ever see Enemy at the Gates with Jude Law? Yeah. So it kind of has that sort of angle to the movie for about half of it. and then it turns into kind of a Resident Evil sort of. It's not zombie, but you know, I don't want to spoil anything for you. But it's once the characters, the character design of the monsters rear its head, I was kind of taken out of the movie a little bit. And I think that's kind of the common complaint. But when the movie ended, I didn't sit there and just go, man, I just wasted 2 hours of my life. I actually was like, all right, you know, I'd probably watch that again. It wasn't bad at all. It was actually pretty enjoyable. It took its time at the beginning to kind of develop the characters a little bit, which is something that is just so missed in a lot of these streaming movies, is the underwhelming character development. So they do develop the characters pretty well. So by the end of the movie, you care about what happens to them. Whereas a lot of these movies, I was like, I don't care.
It'd be great, dude. Another Halloween Resurrection. Let's get it.
And just start murdering these.
Dangertainment, dude. It's like, it's like every movie is Walmart store brand. Like nothing against Walmart, you know. If you shop at Walmart, cool. But Walmart is Walmart. You know, it's not. It's. Do you think? I don't know if you're a big fan of streaming shows, or do you think, you know what I mean? Because I feel like they do a much better job with streaming shows, but they literally cannot pull it off in movies at all for the most part. Like I just don't. I mean, I get the show, how it works. You know, it's it's a very different process, right? You have so many filler episodes and whatever, but there's a lot of great streaming shows all the time. But movies, what are you? Whoever is in charge of the movie arm on Netflix or whatever, guys, we got to have a real conversation.
Yeah, we do. You're right. Because last year I watched I don't know how many streaming movies, and I only saw 2 good ones. Like genuinely, I saw Hitman. Did you watch that?
I watched half of it with my wife. We never finished it, but you enjoyed it. That was a popular one.
You never finished it. Okay. That was actually, I thought, a good movie, but you know, you had Richard Linklater, who's, you know, Dazed and Confused, just School of Rock, like just a legendary dude, good director. I thought it was solid. And then Cotto Lake, which was kind of a semi-horror movie, but that was supposed to go to theaters, and nobody wanted to distribute it, so they held it on the shelf, and they're like, I guess we'll just release it on streaming. So that didn't feel like a streaming movie.
I haven't seen it. I don't know if you got the same guy from like Maze Runner, I think, right? Yeah. It looked actually really interesting because it kind of was like a little bit darker, almost like a little scary, but like it clearly, I could tell it was a movie that could kind of make you think a little bit, which I was interested in. Like there was something, it seemed basic on the surface, but there's something different going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's emotionally resonant.
Like that makes sense.
When I found out that it was actually supposed to go to theaters, I was like,
I'm just saying
so
that makes sense. You're probably thinking, you're like, this is not, it's technically not really a streaming movie.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, and then the Salem's Lot remake was supposed to go to theaters. But they held on to that for a couple years because I think they were supposed to release it like right around COVID time, maybe a little bit after. And apparently there's like a whole different cut of that movie because I thought that was dog shit when it came out. That's another one. I put out a bad review on that, and people were like, it's so good. And I was like, what? Have you not seen or read Salem's Lot? I was like, they left like everything out of that.
Yeah, I saw pretty much the entire thing. It was pretty mediocre from what I remember. I don't understand the passion for that movie. Yeah. If previous installments or whatever, you know, or the book, cool. But yeah, that movie I think was just kind of made to be very basic and generic. So and one thing from a horror standpoint that I was actually disappointed to see was they were coming out with the Derry series this year, where Bill Skarsgård was going to be Pennywise again, and they just pushed it back. They just they took it off the schedule. It's not going to release this year. Yeah, I bet part of that has to do with maybe Skarsgård being super busy, because he has been really busy, or who knows what. I'm sure the budget on that, because the budget on the It Chapter 1 and It Chapter 2 was astronomical for a horror movie, obviously. And the CGI is, it's a Marvel, it's an MCU movie, essentially. Like the amount of that movie that is digital. which is just, obviously so different than the original. But one, I mean,
especially the second one.
Yeah, top 5 or top 10, definitely highest grossing horror movies of all time, both of them. So that I can understand that, because that one's like just such a big project. I'm sure they needed a huge team to make that one, but I mean, on a smaller scale, we got the Friday the 13th TV series that just keeps getting bumped over and over and over. But who knows? It's supposed to be Peacock.
Yes, isn't it called
Crystal Lake? What was it? Uma Thurman was originally rumored to be playing Mrs. I think it was Uma. No, not Uma.
Really? Was she supposed to play Jason's mom?
Blonde. I can't remember her name. Anyways, very famous. She was originally going to be, I guess, Mrs. Voorhees, but who knows? Who knows? There's just so. I mean, Hollywood's always been pretty wild with this kind of stuff. Things getting canceled and made and then unmade, but there's been movies also that just like there was that Pharrell movie I just recently read about that. No, one that is never going to come out. One? They did another one of those things, right, where it was, I believe they made the entire movie and they're like, yeah, no.
Like with that girl?
Exactly.
Interesting.
Which, who knows, that might have always been happening. But, I mean, we just need some adults making some stuff that they're passionate about, really. That's what it comes down to. You seen anything about that?
Yeah. Well, here's one that might get you going. Sam Raimi's horror return.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna get that movie, and then Scream 7 shortly after that one. So it'd be great to see Raimi coming back. That'd be really cool.
So yes, that's my thing. I was actually going to ask you. So, like, if you had to build like a Mount Rushmore of horror directors, Sam Raimi would absolutely be on that list for me. Like Evil Dead, the first 3 Evil Deads are they hold a special place in my heart, man. Those are like they are a lot of movies.
Evil Dead's one of those. It's like I understand why people love them. I never saw them when I was a kid, so I don't know if you did.
Never did it for you.
Did you? Okay.
That's why. Yes. I saw my uncle showed me the first Evil Dead when I was probably like 13 or something, and I thought it was.
Yeah, see, I never had that experience. I only saw them, in my 30s. So I like them. Army of Darkness is fun. Okay. Just the craziness of that movie. I think my favorite in the franchise is probably one, and then I can't remember actually how I ranked them, but Army of Darkness is maybe second or third, but. Yeah, they're fun, but it'd be good to see Raimi come back. He just seems like, I mean, I don't obviously know him, but seems like a guy who's just passionate about the genre, just passionate about movie making, just loves it. I mean, yeah, just crazy.
He made the first Evil Dead when he was 20 years old.
He just seems like a chill guy. Money, like there's no money whatsoever. Obviously, I'm sure you've seen Jason Goes to Hell, right? And the Necronomicon is in that movie, which is the Necronomicon from Army of Darkness. It just shows you Sam Raimi's just a super chill guy. The director of Jason Goes to Hell said he was just hanging out on set, huge fan of the franchise, and eventually just mustered up the courage to ask him, hey man, could I use that in, this movie? And he's like, yeah, sure, no problem. And he put it in a Ziploc bag and was like, yeah, no big deal.
That's awesome.
Whereas when they used the Freddy glove at the end of Jason Goes to Hell, that big moment there when Kane Hodder pulls it out of grabs it, the Freddy glove from New Line, that came with 1 or 2 guards. I don't know if they're armed, but 1 or 2 guards in a locked box. There's all this craziness, but just Sam Raimi just seems kind of like a chill, like unique breed in Hollywood, which comes across in his movies.
He does. Yeah, so I'd put him on the. Do you have like a Mount Rushmore list? Because Sam Raimi would be up there, and then John Carpenter to me is probably like, I know he has Halloween and stuff, but to me, I'm like, dude,
bangers.
In the 80s, there probably wasn't
his ability to cross genres. I mean, a lot of his movies have a similar tone to them, even like The Thing or Escape from New York or whatever, or Halloween. They all have kind of like a grittiness to them, which I love. But I mean, I think something that's unique is the ability to blend different genres. Some people put people, I think, on their Mount Rushmore who have like one good movie or two, but they're like apex movies, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But I usually tend to go to kind of sway towards people who are either able to do the longevity or able to cross so many different things. But man, Mount Rushmore, that's tough. Carpenter would be on there. I would say, not just in horror. I mean, I would have to put probably like Spielberg on there, you know, in general, just because also blending different genres. Right. I mean, horror, big action, blockbuster, more indie stuff, just everything. Movies that just are going to make you cry the entire time. Movies that are just going to make you just blow your mind. For him, obviously, that goes without saying. We don't need to talk too much about that, but man, that's hard to say. I mean, Christopher Nolan's been killing it for a very, very long time, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, I know, right?
I know he said he wants to
I can only dream, man.
At some point, too.
I can only dream. Will that ever happen? I don't know.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah. Yeah, I think with him, it all comes down to the idea. That's the only thing he cares about. I think he's never going to make a low budget horror movie. I would never say that. I think it would have to be something where it's going to blow our minds because it's going to be like a big budget horror movie. And I bet the great thing about it is it would be, the majority of it would probably be practical because he's the type of guy, like he'll blow up a building if he needs to.
Yeah.
But he doesn't care, you know, because he just loves that. Like you said, still on film.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's not on my Mount Rushmore, but I do love Jordan Peele. You know, he's got a long ways to go in my opinion. Love him. I just love his passion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't like the only movie of his I didn't like was the second Us.
I would agree.
I thought that was his
he's got like I said, he's got
effort.
a long ways to go, but I just love his passion and his thought process and everything. Yeah, he loves the genre and he blends. You know, obviously being a comedy guy, he blends the genres so well. You know, Mount Rushmore. That's hard. That's hard. That is tough, but there's so many. There's so many great ones. Right? But
have you ever done a deep dive into the Poltergeist drama, whether Tobe Hooper
not yet
actually directed it or Spielberg did of Poltergeist? That'd be an interesting video I'd like to watch of yours, because I did a little bit of a deep dive. I made a video about Tobe Hooper last year, and it was interesting going and reading about how everything happened there. And one of the things that's interesting about that movie is it's one of the few movies that ever used actual like rotting, dead, real life dead bodies in it. Like that scene where she falls in, the skeletons.
Isn't that crazy?
Those are actual like skeletons.
What do you think?
Dead bodies.
About that whole the Tobe Hooper
of what? The whole thing? I mean, it feels like Tobe Hooper directed half the movie and then the studio was like, but because Spielberg was there the whole time and he was like, hey, I can do this. Cause he was doing E.T. at the same time. So I feel like Tobe Hooper did direct half the movie and then the other half was Spielberg either directing it or really heavily influencing.
Yeah, I think something similar happened with Halloween 2, the original. I think Carpenter, he didn't technically direct it. He wrote it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think he was heavily involved.
He didn't want to make a sequel
in the production because the studio just didn't really like the direction the movie was going. Something, kind of similar. I've covered Halloween 2 a million times, but I haven't really done all the deep dive stuff. But yeah. What's that?
Do you like Halloween 2? You like Halloween 2?
Halloween 2, the original, is actually, it's actually one of my favorite horror movies ever. Yeah. It takes a lot of flack sometimes.
Really?
I mean, some people love it. I really love the blend of Halloween and Friday the 13th, you know? It feels, the aesthetic of it is so great and gritty. It's like the original Halloween, but just bloodier, a little bit more like vulgar, more sexual content. Yes. And I just love, like I had some, I've had family members in my life work in kind of like hospitals and stuff. So growing up around that space, it's always been kind of just that I just love that hospital setting, you know, late at night, nobody's there.
Yeah.
Michael Myers creeping around, doing his thing. That movie has endless rewatchability for me, Halloween 2. Yep. Whether people hate it or love it, I don't, you know, whatever. But
yeah. I don't love it like you did, but I never understood the hate for that movie, but I'm obviously, but I'm also a big Season of the Witch fan. So I don't know if that movie gets shit on constantly, but I also feel like as of late, a lot more people are like, you know what? Halloween 3 actually had something with it because it was actually supposed to go, and I'm sure you know the whole story. Like they wanted to make the Halloween series like an anthology. So that's why Michael Myers, the only part he's in is when like a trailer in a bar or something. But I love Halloween 3, and you can see it's
almost like people should respect the movie more because, okay, they removed Michael Myers completely and still made an incredible movie, in my opinion, you know?
Yep. Yeah.
It is.
I love it.
I always,
so corny,
with those
but
movies,
so
I always try to
good,
sit down and say to myself, okay, you're not just liking this to be different. And I just genuinely like the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. It doesn't feel like a Halloween movie, which I understand some people's issue with that. But I like the movie. Like if you called that movie anything else, I probably would have I would have liked it too. So how did you feel about the latest
BGG
David Gordon Green Halloween?
Yeah,
movies?
that was. He's from Dallas.
He's from around here. Yeah, he's from Richardson, which is just a city just outside of Dallas.
Yeah, man, that's a crazy trilogy because 2018 really enjoyed it. One of the only, I think it was the first. Yeah, it was the first like horror movie I ever took my wife to.
Loved it.
She's not a horror fan.
Oh, and my wife either. I've seen you post that on the Instagram. You're like trying to get my wife to watch a horror movie. My wife hates them. My wife's Mexican, so she's got all that like Mexican hoodoo, voodoo, you know, stuff that comes when it comes to horror movies. So she just can't do them. I made her watch. I had her sit down and watch Talk to Me, and like I don't think she talked to me for.
Has she seen the Paranormal Activity movie? I don't remember what it is. It's probably like 4 or 5 or 6. It's kind of smack dab in the middle, but it's following this Hispanic family.
Oh,
and it's an interesting story.
Yeah,
because they're very much they like people still do exorcisms in Mexico. You know, like it's interesting.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And she was raised by her grandparents, and they're from Mexico, so they're like, you know, just they have all this traditional stuff, and it's like whenever a kid gets sick, they're like, "Here, try this little concoction." That
It's just
like,
weed. Don't worry.
It's like tar. But yeah,
this smells oddly familiar.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, exactly. Yep. But no, it's funny, man. It's interesting because my wife's not really into movies at all. So she likes her like feel good, funny movies. Like when I met her, she was like, "Oh yeah, I watched like The Office and How I Met Your Mother," and I didn't realize at the time that that's the only thing she watches. So I've seen both of those.
You know, I think that's actually like probably a parallel with people who make content. I think that's something that a lot of us have in common is that. We're like, damn, I don't have a lot of people to talk movies with, so I'm going to do it with you guys, you know, which is part of the reason why I got started. That helped, but I can't remember what we were talking about.
Yeah,
Halloween 3.
Well, my wife has actually seen a couple of my reviews, and she's been like, "Oh, that sounds like a good movie. I want to go watch it now," you know, or maybe. She saw a trailer for a movie. She's like, "Oh, I really want to go see that." And then she watched.
Mine's similar. Mine's kind of similar. The David Gordon Green trilogy. I actually really like 2018 a lot. I know a lot of people say it's like a paint by numbers Halloween movie.
Yeah,
you know, it doesn't really step outside of the boundaries at all. But I mean, the mask looks great. Great kills. It's scary. Weirdly, I never have nightmares about horror movies.
Yep.
But when I revisited those 3 movies like a year ago or something like that, I think it was for a video, I had a dream about being stalked by Michael in Laurie's house. You know, that house, I think it's in Georgia. But it was kind of creepy. But anyways, I think just the vibe of that movie is great. Halloween Kills, I don't know, man. That's a wild ride. You know, that is the epitome. I made a video on those 3 movies. Just basically, it's like the rise and fall of those 3 movies, because it just fits that roller coaster so well. Because even Halloween Ends has great moments, but there's like great moments and then rock bottom moments too. You're just like, I honestly don't know what you're thinking or what you're doing. What am I even watching? Mixed with great moments. It's just weird.
Yeah. I agree with you, but Halloween Kills really, it was a cool movie. It was setting up a lot of cool stuff, but then like at the end, you know, when they all gather around him and try to kill him, I'm like, dude, there's like 20 dudes out here. Like, there's no chance that this is happening. It was so dumb. The third one was a cool concept that I felt like would have been a better TV series if maybe they explored it more, because it wasn't a Michael Myers movie. It was like this other guy, and they're building him up, and then he dies. And I was like, well, that's like the whole movie felt like a big rug pull. And then at the end, Laurie comes in and they do all that stuff. And so I was just like, man, that was like the most, I was like, if anyone wants to know what a red herring is, watch Halloween Ends, because it's a big red herring.
Like, okay, in Halloween 2018, then, Laurie is like Sarah Connor, super paranoid, ready for everything, shooting in her gun range in her backyard. Yeah. But Michael Myers he's literally locked up. You can go and visit him. You know exactly where he is. He's locked up, chained up, not hurting a soul.
Yeah.
But then in Halloween Ends, Michael is, who knows where Michael is? He's literally in the sewer in town, murdering people, eating them for all we know, and jizzing his pants at the same time. But yet Laurie doesn't care anymore.
Yeah.
She's like baking pies, and she's carefree now. It's like those should have switched. It really comes down to with those 3 movies is they had no forthright to think ahead other than the first movie. Did they know they were going to make? There's no way they knew that they were going to make 3, because they don't make any sense at all. And I'm fine with movies being a different tone. That's totally cool. Like,
they don't.
You have movies like you'll watch the original Texas Chainsaw movie and then the second one, and they're completely different in so many different ways. But they don't feel like that.
Oh my God.
They feel like they're supposed to be disconnected.
Yeah.
Whereas these movies feel like they were poorly connected in so many ways, and they just didn't know what they were doing. And then people say, well, you love gore. Like, you love kills in your horror movies. Yeah. Why don't you like Halloween Kills? And I'm like, well, it's Michael Myers exiting a house, and he just looks at 20 firefighters, and then they all just line up and take turns. And it just feels weird and dumb. and then they're in the street with the mob.
Yeah.
And there's like, they're doing all these weird zoom-ins, like in Friday the 13th Part 5. And it's clearly shot in like a set or something. And hey, you take your turn, and then you take your turn. Evil dies tonight. But it's I could go on and on about kills and ends, but they do have some great moments. The junkyard scene in Halloween Ends, I think, is a lot of fun. You know, that kill at the radio station is a lot of fun. It's cool to see legacy characters, but I mean, in Halloween Kills, I mean, there's probably a few. It's a little overboard, but
yeah, I agree with you. And what I'm interested to see where it goes now, since Blumhouse sold off the rights to the Halloween series. And then I saw that, like they went full bore and bought the rights to the Exorcist movies, and then that movie was just a big fart. So it was like, but is Mike Flanagan's doing a new one? So,
I'm definitely looking forward to that. I really like what was that TV show he did? What was that show he did? No. Sorry, what did you say?
Haunting of Hill House?
No, the other one. It's on like an island. The vampire one.
Oh,
yes, Midnight Mass. Really enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun.
Oh, Midnight Mass.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing what he does. But
fantastic.
What, $400 or $500 million for a franchise that nobody really considers a franchise?
Yes.
It's not like not like Star Wars or something or Halloween where it's like you're going to be pumping out Halloween movies until the end of time. But the Exorcist movies, there's only so much you can do with a demonic possession, head twisting concept, in my opinion. But
that's why I like.
It's a popular one.
Exorcist 3 with
a lot of people really like that one. The second one is dog do, but
I love it. Oh God, it's so bad. But I liked Exorcist 3 because it was based, the guy who wrote the book directed it. And it's not the typical, demon possession movie. I mean, there's definitely that towards the end of the movie. It gets a little ridiculous, but I really liked a lot of the stuff that was happening in there.
It's been a long time since I've seen it. I need to go back and revisit the franchise.
It's great, dude. You should go back and watch it. And then plus,
I love Brad.
Who's possessed is Brad Dourif, Chucky. So, oh yeah,
legend.
That's a horror gem right there. That guy. So yeah, no, that's that. I watched it recently. I watched that. So somebody wanted me to make a list of like underrated sequels, and I made one where I went back and watched that, and I watched Psycho 2. And Psycho 2 is actually great. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's completely different than the first Psycho. But man, the kills in that are great. They really make Norman Bates just like you truly.
Yeah, I have a big plan to do a big Hitchcock.
I really enjoyed that.
I don't even know if Hitchcock was involved with that one, but okay. But I really want to dig into more of that franchise. That's one of those where nobody ever talks about Psycho 2. I feel like before YouTube, nobody probably even heard that was a hidden gem because the original just outweighs it so much.
Yeah, that's true.
But the what are some horror movies this year? I mean, you already said 28 years later, but what are some that you're like, I mean, you're going to see everything because you're a big movie guy like I am, but what are some where you're like, I have to see that movie? Yeah. I can't be out of town. Like I need to see it.
I have to see Bring Her Back. Yeah. I have to see Bring Her Back just because I'm so... I talked to me when I first saw that movie. I was like, this is wild. Like, this is a horror movie. I hadn't felt that way in a while.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
It was probably like the second video or something, second or third video I ever did on my channel.
I think
I enjoyed it.
Okay. That was, and I think the reason I liked it so much too is because it really felt like a movie that was directed by guys who had a ton of experience in the industry. Like it had nuance. It had like these subtle things that you see more experienced people make than less experienced. And then when I saw who the guys were that made it, I was like, dude, these guys are like the Australian versions of Terrence and Phillip. Like I couldn't believe that they made that movie. So maybe it was a lot of the stuff that kind of combined into it that I was really impressed by it. So yeah, Bring Her Back, I think is going to be awesome. I saw Hard Eyes. I thought it was fun, like nothing to run home about. Final Destination. I'm definitely looking forward to that. Hoping that can maybe.
Same writer, the guy who wrote Scream 5 and 6. One of them is going to help write that one, so hopefully that'll help.
Yep. Yeah. I'm
I know what you did last summer. The Monkey.
28 years later.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'll check that out. I saw The Monkey. Didn't really care about it too much. And then last year, I was looking forward to Nosferatu. I really, really liked that. I saw your review on it. I know that you were like, I respect it, but I don't.
Yeah, for me, it mainly just comes down to the subgenre that it's in and the material, the source material, which is fun, but it's not my favorite.
The gothic horror. Have you seen?
I started to watch it. I turned it off.
Have you seen the original Nosferatu? Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's a 100-year-old movie, but it's basically the same movie.
Is it
everything
like
that happens
really recycled, almost in a bad way?
So. No, I think he did a really good job because this is the movie Robert Eggers always wanted to make ever since he became a filmmaker, and apparently he directed a play about it in like college or something. So you could tell that there was like a lot of love put into this movie. There were some interesting choices, like with the character design of
starts with a D
of Nosferatu. I thought that was kind of. I mean, I liked it.
With the porn stash,
gross and looked like a decaying corpse. Yeah, with a porn stash. Yeah, yeah. And then I really, really enjoyed it. But I like Robert Eggers a lot. And I saw that movie like 2 weeks before it came out, and I was like, "There's no way that mainstream audiences are going to jive with this movie at all." And I was right. You know, I went and saw it again in the theater.
That's a theater movie with the visuals. You got to see that movie in the theater.
I saw the theater.
It's almost an IMAX movie.
Yeah.
Almost, just because it's very beautiful. But there was like,
but there was like 5 people. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And I was talking to someone last week, and she really liked the movie too. And she was like, "What I love about it is that the movie's so dark. There's so much black in the movie, but you can see everything that's happening." That was one of the things we were bitching about. It was like, it's so like there's so many things that happen in movies now. You're like, I can't see what's happening. It's so dark. I was like, with Robert Eggers, he's really good at making blacks pop. Like one of the guys I had on here said that he's basically what like Wes Anderson is with pastels, Robert Eggers is with black. And I was like, that's actually a good point, because you can see all of it. It's really, really, it's
yeah, I think the cinematographer on that movie almost deserves more credit than Eggers, because the actual movie, the character development and how the movie goes about is just kind of okay. It's more the world that you're in and my opinion, but that's kind of the same reason why I really like Nope. Sure. You know, Jordan Peele's Nope is Hoyt van Hoytema, I think, was the cinematographer on that movie, but they did all the night stuff during the day. You know, they did that whole concept. So like, I love that. Just the way it looks. But I was just gonna say, sorry, Thanksgiving 2 might be dropping this November. We haven't heard a lot. What?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Is Eli Roth doing that?
Whether it's going to be this year or next year, I'm not 100% sure yet.
Okay. I love the first one.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I really like the first one.
How'd you feel about it?
Yeah, I really liked it. It's a really fun movie. Yeah. Definitely one that I rewatch. I already have rewatched a few times or a couple times. It's not like, you know, it's not on the level of the great slashers, because the characters are so dumb and stupid and they're not like really nobody's likable not character wise, and it's a horror slasher, but still, you even compare it, in my opinion, to a movie like a slasher like I Know What You Did Last Summer, which is not considered one of the greatest slashers ever by any means, but has fun characters that have gone on to have incredible careers.
It really does.
Whereas a movie like Thanksgiving, the characters are very much an afterthought. It's really all about the kills and John Carver. So
the kills.
It's fun. It's definitely fun. I have the 4K. It's really fun, but
it's fun, man. I had a blast with that movie. And you know, Eli Roth is one of those guys who's very hit or miss. You know, he can make that movie and then put up Borderlands.
And he does a decent job in different genres. He had that movie with Keanu Reeves. Green Inferno was kind of horror, of course, but I actually I know that movie gets shit on a lot with Keanu Reeves, because they're like, it's the worst Keanu's ever acted, but I actually kind of like that movie. It makes you feel something. It's one of those movies where you can feel this guy's struggle on screen. He's trying so hard to be a good guy, and these girls, man, he just he can't resist them, and they. It reminds that movie actually kind of reminds me of some of the movies we used to get in the 90s and stuff. Where it was like, there's not a lot going on, but you're really feeling something, almost like a movie like Collateral with Tom Cruise. In a weird way, I'm just thinking about that on the fly, but you're like two people in a cab doing nothing, but I'm really enjoying the experience. That movie's not on that level, but Eli Roth. I mean, I'm a sucker for the original Hostel. I don't know if you are as well, but that movie, I don't know.
I like it. Yeah, it's silly, but I like it. When it came out, everyone was like, "Oh my god, it's gore porn!" You know, shocking. Yeah, and now I go back and watch it, and I'm like, "Bro, this is nothing." Like,
the gore. Yeah, the gore is actually
Terrifier movies.
almost not. I don't want to say tame, but it's not shocking nowadays at all. It's almost like, I thought this movie was way gorier than this.
Not at all.
But that movie, not to make this a hostile conversation completely, but the end of that movie, I actually think is one of like the best revenge moments in moments in probably the last 20 years or so in horror, just in horror. I just really love the end of that movie after everything that guy goes through and just how he kind of gets back.
It's great.
Just a lot of fun. But I pulled up this paper, just anticipated movies. Fear Street, Prom Queen, Wolfman already came out. Five Nights at Freddy's. Did you ever watch the Fear Street franchise? I'm sure you did. You watch everything. Yeah.
Yeah, they're okay. They're okay. I mean, I don't remember much about them, but I watched all three of them. I think I liked the first one's the one that takes place in the 90s,
sounds right, because the second one is 1978, and then the third one. I like the one that takes. The third one's way back. Yep. Yeah. So that must be what it was.
1600s.
That was your favorite one, the 90s.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that one the best. I think that was the one that resonated with me the most. Anyways, and I like the opening scene. That was because she was closing like a Suncoast movie in the theater or in the mall.
That was cool. Like, and then they're stuck in one of the shops and with some pretty gory moments. You're kind of surprised right off the bat. You're like, oh, I was expecting this to be like a kid movie, but it's actually pretty gory. Yeah, I really liked, my favorite one I would say is the 1978, the second one, just because it was clearly inspired by like Friday the 13th. You had very much that feel to it, but this one it should be pretty fun. I think this one's in the 80s. Yeah. I think it'll be inspired by maybe like Prom Night, that slasher movie from 1980 with Jamie Lee Curtis, if you've ever seen it, but maybe. What's that? Oh, Prom Night from 1980.
Which one?
It's kind of a kind of a cult classic slasher, definitely. But pretty good.
Yeah.
Not
I know
like
what
the
it
most
is.
incredible slasher ever, but it's solid. Yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis is in it like shortly after Halloween.
Yeah.
So definitely want to check out for sure.
Okay. I'm definitely. I will. I mean, any horror movie that comes out, I'm into. Did you have a favorite horror movie from last year?
I did. Yeah. I did make a list of my favorite horror movies of the year, which was a really hard list to make last year. I don't know why, but I felt like, I feel like there are some people in our space who I feel like were drooling over the horror movies from last year, just saying how it was just. Man, just unbelievable, incredible, so spoiled. You're shaking your head, so you're kind of on the same boat as me. I kind of felt like it was good. It was a good year, but not amazing. So I had a really hard time making like that number one. I ended up just going with the movie that I rewatched the most and has the most rewatchability for me, which was Alien Romulus. So I know some people, I've even heard some people say like, oh, you're not a true horror fan or a true movie fan if you really love, or your number one movie is Alien Romulus. But for me, that movie is really flawed in so many ways. But almost like we were talking about Eggers just a second ago.
It is, yeah.
Just being transported into that world.
Yeah, the world building was really cool in that movie.
Yeah,
especially all the
I really just chose it. I mean, I loved Oddity. I loved Romulus. Obviously, I loved.
Yeah, Oddity would probably. Be
that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. I really liked that movie. Came out of left field. We always get those every year, which is great. I'm trying to actually look at my list really quick of my top 10. If you don't mind, I'm just going to pull it up really fast.
No, not at all. Yeah, I think Oddity. I'd love to see Ari Aster make another horror movie, but just I don't know how you feel about Hereditary, but when I first saw that movie,
that's an all-timer, definitely. So let's see. Oh, there we go. There it is. I mean, I had Alien Romulus. I had Maxine number 2, which is also kind of a surprising one, probably. Terrifier 3 was in the top 10.
I love
all of them. You're a fan of all of them?
They're ridiculous, but I love them.
Yeah.
I like 2 and 3 the best. one is fine. I mean, for what it was, you know, they made the movie for what, like
nothing
$10,000 or something. Like they had no budget for that movie. So I know a lot of people say 2 is the best, but I actually think 3 is my favorite. The only thing I can do without in those movies are the freaking when it feels like a Hallmark movie, you know, a lot of the inner family stuff. But just the ending of 3, and there was a little bit more character building for Art, because I was like, hey, maybe he's not just a, you know, just this murdering machine. There's actually something else going on here. I was glad that they kind of opened up a window to that aspect of it. And
really good. I am with you. Awesome. I don't see any world where I would think Terrifier 2 is better than 3. Terrifier 2 gives you no answers at all virtually at the end of the movie. We wanted some answers, we got nothing.
No answers.
I way prefer the gore in Terrifier 3 as opposed to Terrifier 2. I think the gore in Terrifier 3 was just way more creative and interesting and fun, and the liquid nitrogen stuff, the chainsaw scene,
some of those kills were
the tube with the rats, dude.
The
just
tube
like
with the rat,
you know, those kills that make you say, "Holy shit!" God. Whereas in Terrifier 2, the bedroom scene, it's just kind of drawn out. Like there's nothing really happening that's really unique or interesting or makes me laugh. Or I'm a big Friday the 13th guy, so I love kills where it's like, it's like, damn, I got to rewind that real quick. That was crazy, you know.
Yeah. And even in Terrifier 3, I mean, the opening thing, he's freaking killing kids and shit.
I know.
Like, whoa, they went there.
It's crunchy and juicy, and
I'm in.
Which was really cool. That opening was great. I was like, wow, this is the best shot, probably moment of the whole franchise so far. Like the tension and because like Damien Leone did the music, he did so many things in Terrifier 2, and you could tell. Like there were moments where people were just having like a normal conversation, and there's like synth music blasting over there, and you're like, it's just, you could tell, which is not, that's not a knock on him. It's just the reality of a low budget film. Like they were an amazing product. Yeah. That's another director I love is Damien Leone. Would love to see him do Friday the 13th. And my reason for saying that is
me too.
I love the passion. He loves the genre. What's that?
About it. Well, did you see him post about that?
I think so.
Did you see him post about that? He
recently?
Put on his he put on his Instagram the other day. It was like Damien Leone says he wants to do a Friday the 13th movie. Yeah, it was like yesterday or something. He put it on his story. He was like, this right here. And
dude, it's kind of a perfect fit.
Something.
I mean, it kind of is. I mean, he's
match made
you can tell
right
too,
there.
He's not just a gore guy. He's a deep thinker, in my opinion. You know, he, like with Terrifier, he wants to have something deep there, not just like a Thanksgiving movie where it's like crazy kills and fun, and he wants to have something deep there. So I think, of course, Friday the 13th is not deep at all, but he could come up with a little something to make it kind of interesting, in my opinion. Yeah.
He seems like a genuinely good dude. I know he got just raked over the coals because he put out a tweet saying like, it's the only time I'm going to say anything about politics. He was like, I got, you know, people in the Terrifier family are Trump supporters and they vote other ways. And he's like, I don't care. That's not my realm. And then people are like, well, you should care everything. And I was like, dude, that seems like the best thing for any director to say, especially if you're making a movie about a murderous clown. But he got raked over the coals for that. I couldn't believe the response. And then
I couldn't believe it either, man. I read it. I just read through it once. Because I was like, whatever. Like, it's probably not a big deal. And he basically said, I want everybody in my cast and my production to be able to speak their mind. I don't give a shit who you vote for. Yep. And I'm like, that's great. Obviously, that seems objectively great.
Yeah.
And then I saw people saying, people who are YouTubers with a little bit of a following saying things like, oh, he doesn't support the people on his team who. And it's like, okay, we clearly know who you voted for, obviously. And then B, it was like, that's not what he said at all. He said he was accepting of everyone. Yeah. It's in writing. He didn't, you know what I mean? It's literally in writing.
Literally said the opposite of. That's the stuff that drives me crazy about the internet. I'm like, that seems like a very nice response. But then Christopher Nolan came out like a week later and said pretty much the same thing. He was like, I don't make movies about my politics because who the hell wants to watch
that's why
that?
That's why everybody loves your movies.
No, that makes sense.
Because you're like, you know, like,
yeah.
Newsflash, Hollywood, you make good movies that don't push agendas. So, people tend to enjoy that.
No one cares.
Yeah, no, exactly. But
yep, there you go. All right, Matt. Well, we've been at this for a little while, man. I'll probably start wrapping things up. But what do you got? What do you got coming up?
I got a few things in the works. I'm doing some nostalgia stuff coming up recently. I just did some "Are You Afraid of the Dark" content. You know, a throwback.
Okay.
A little bit of that. I'm sure I'll have some more Goosebumps stuff coming out in the future. But
yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was pretty good.
How was your
people seem to enjoy it. Those are always hard because they're so old and it's TV. So it's not really like you can buy a 4K or buy a Blu-ray for it or something like that. Just like sometimes the seasons are jumbled, or the seasons are located on one platform and not on the other platform or whatever, or they remove them. So that gets a little tough. But those are a lot of fun to revisit, and it's something I could also watch with my kids sometimes, which is really cool. Like I'm gonna probably talk about. I'll probably get into some Jurassic Park stuff here in the near future, which is my son will eat that up, which will be a lot of fun. He already loves it. But yeah, I have an Elm Street video coming out pretty soon. It's kind of about Elm Street 7, 8, and 9, which is very much a movie that has a lot of ups and 3 movies that has a lot of ups and downs in it. It's like a 15. What's that?
Yep. What number was New Nightmare?
7.
What number was New Nightmare?
See, yeah, and that's a movie. The more I watch it, the more I enjoy it because it's really unique. And it's like Scream before Scream in some ways. Yeah. Very meta. You can see a lot of like Wes Craven using ideas that he's going to later use in Scream in that movie. Even Nancy is very similar to Sydney.
Yeah.
Very similar. And then you have Freddy versus Jason, and then you have the remake, which I love it. I love it.
I hate it.
I actually do.
Do you like the remake?
And I swear to God, I'm not just trying to be different. I genuinely watched the movie, and I mean we're a similar age, so I'm sure you get a little bit of nostalgia from like that era. But it's very dark.
Sure.
You know, they take the original idea of Freddy Krueger that Wes Craven originally had that he had to take out, and they go for that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that he was
and they kind of definitely go for that. And I know they hint that a lot in the franchise, but I like I don't know, I like it. Kyle Gallner's in it, you know. He's been getting a lot of love because of Strange Darling.
Yeah. I like Kyle Gallner a lot.
That was one of my top 10 horror movies of last year too.
Awesome.
A lot of fun. And it was basically just him and that girl just acting the whole movie and killing it. So he's in it. Really enjoy that. The kills are great. It's a lot of fun as far as that goes. What do you, not to go too long on that, so what do you hate about the remake?
I probably need to go back and watch it. But the problem I had with that movie is what they did with Freddy. I do like some of the kills, but I didn't like that they just made him a full-on child rapist, because I think part of the charm of Freddy was that he was a child killer. Yeah, that's not good. But he had redeemable qualities, I guess you could say. And then plus Robert Englund played him very tongue-in-cheek. He's scary, but he's also funny. And Jackie Earle Haley with the ADR voice, it didn't mesh with me. They tried to make him just gross and scary and vile, I guess, and it worked. And I don't know. I probably need to go. Probably being a little unfair to the movie, because I remember the first time I saw it. I mean, obviously, I have this image of who Freddy Krueger is in my head. And then when I saw that, I was like, that just didn't feel like Freddy to me.
That's actually kind of a lot of my complaints with the movie as well. I'm with you on that. I totally understand. Yeah, the voice is too digital.
Yeah.
One thing I feel like they did, because I recently just watched it again, is they did really, really wrong in that movie is when Freddy gets tracked down by the parents, they're all like following him. Kyle Gallner basically like has this micro nap at his swim practice. He's swimming and all of a sudden has this micro nap thing, which is also new to the franchise.
Yes.
And then he's basically transported back to when Freddy Krueger's killed, and the parents are chasing him. And they make Freddy like cower, and he kind of acts like a little bitch. He's like hiding. I didn't do it. I'm innocent.
Yeah.
And then that kind of takes away how scary the character is later in the movie. And I get it. He's supposed to be like a weasel, like this rat who's just kind of just nasty and bad. But it takes away from the character, definitely. And I'm with you. I mean, he's not Robert Englund by any means. But
yeah. And I know they were like, we don't have Robert Englund for this movie, so let's try to make him very different. But yeah, I mean, you know,
most people hate that movie. I feel like, man. So I don't think. I think I'm in the.
Yeah. You know, it's because I think one of the very first like big boy horror movies I ever watched was Nightmare on Elm Street. So I was young. I was like 7 or 8 or something, you know. So I have very vivid memories of like my young mind trying to comprehend what I watched, and then like having problems sleeping and stuff. And then when I watched that new one, I was like, it didn't register with me. I was also an adult when it came out, but it just didn't hit any of that.
And it's weird when you have kids watching that movie too, because it's pretty yucky, definitely. You know, it's pretty dark. But other than that, that's it's kind of it. It's kind of it. Just gonna keep pumping out some stuff like that.
Okay.
I'll probably revisit for fun. I'll probably revisit the Scream TV show for fun. Really?
A lot of people have been talking that up lately. I watched the first season. I remember thinking it was okay, but I never finished it out. But I've seen some people as of lately, at least on the YouTube world, be like, "No, that's really, really slept on. It's actually great." And it was one of the last things. I think Wes Craven was.
That's part of the reason why I want to go back and just kind of dig into it a little bit. But yeah, it's not very well received, I feel like, with horror fans in general. But it might be fun to kind of cover. But yeah, I'm kind of in the mode right now. Maybe it's just because we're early in the year. The new releases are kind of mediocre. So I'm kind of in this mode of nostalgia and going back to the classics, because like I said, like I want to talk about things that are fun to talk about instead of forcing a movie review just to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. What about you, man? What do you got going?
Cool, man. Well, right now I'm writing my next video. It's going to be kind of the death of the movie star. So that'll be fun. It's I've done a ton of research on it because, that's one of the things that I think is pretty interesting is, I don't feel like there's movie stars anymore. I think maybe there's one. You never say I'm going to go see a Chris Hemsworth movie. You say I'm going to go see the new Thor, or I'm not going to go see
Ryan Gosling or something.
Enter an actor's name. When we were growing up in the 90s, like I'm going to go see the new Jim Carrey movie, and now I'm going to go see Sonic 3. So, like, the movie star really doesn't exist anymore, other than, I'd say, Tom Cruise. People will still say, I'm going to go see the new Tom Cruise movie, because whatever, he plays the same character in a lot of movies. So that's been kind of interesting going back and studying that and just seeing the ridiculous budgets that they throw.
Yeah, the Formula One movie.
The new Brad Pitt movie that's coming out.
Oh, my God. Jesus.
Yeah, that movie cost.
I was wondering, like, how are they? Because
so I'm just like,
tires on a Formula One car are like $50,000. So I was like, just the fact that he's driving a car, which nobody ever gets to do. So $300 million. Okay, that makes sense.
Yep. And it's directed by Joseph Kosinski, the guy who did Top Gun Maverick. So I have high expectations for it, but I'm also like, man, you guys threw an insane amount of money. Maybe it'll be a huge hit over international.
I'm wondering how they're going to incorporate a 60-year-old or 50, whatever. Is he 60? As a Formula One driver?
Yeah, he's 60, I think.
Are they going to go like are they going to go like what's that movie from the 90s with Tom Cruise? Days of Thunder? Like is that kind of, but yeah.
Oh, Days of Thunder? Yeah.
He's really old.
That's interesting. That's
like Lewis Hamilton's probably the oldest driver in Formula One, and he's like 40. Yeah. So I don't know.
Oh, okay. I'm not familiar with a lot of the sport, but every like Formula One movie I've watched of recent years have been excellent. Like Ford versus Ferrari was phenomenal, I thought.
I hadn't seen it, but I heard good things. Yeah,
movie was
with
great
with Hopper from Stranger Things, right?
It's great, man. It's
yep.
Yeah, he's in it. Orlando Bloom's in it. I don't know who the lead actor is. I think he's kind of an up and comer.
Sounds familiar.
His dad's played by Jaimin Hansu. You know who he is?
Yeah, great movie.
He's did you ever see Blood Diamond? He was the guy who was protecting his family. He's phenomenal in the movie. He's really, really good. He plays a dad who's like, I don't want you doing this racing crap. And then he's like, come work a job like a real man on the railroad sort of guy, you know, and then ends up supporting his son's profession. But yeah, no, that's a really solid movie. So I think that's probably one of the summer movies I think is kind of under the radar, even though it's a
Speaking of Hemsworth, you were talking about Hemsworth and Formula One.
And then
there's actually a Hemsworth movie, a Formula One movie somewhere on. Is that what it's called? Rush. I remember randomly just watching it, and I was like, "Oh, this is like out of nowhere."
Phenomenal movie.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
It's a great movie. Yeah.
Ron Howard directed Never heard of it. I think it's just put it on randomly. I was like, oh, this is actually fun. But
yeah. Great movie. Yeah. Emotionally impactful too, I thought, especially towards the end. But yeah, no, that's a great movie, man. But yeah, that's what I got. I'm just writing some videos. I do have, I don't know if you ever, if you're a Buffy guy, but I'm going to be ranking all the seasons of Buffy, doing kind of a deep dive in that, because I went back recently and watched it, and I'm like, I know TV's so good nowadays, but I think one of the things that it's really missing, this is my personal opinion, is like when you watch a show like Buffy, one, I'm surprised at how great the writing holds up just from the character interactions. The writing is great in that show. But two, you know, there's so many TV shows and they're all 6 to 10 episodes now. Back then, there were 20, 25 episodes. So, like, it was almost like those characters became like your friends, or they became like part of your family. Like, character development was otherworldly in a show like Buffy, where you knew every decision that a character made in that show, like, affected you personally. You'd be like, why would Xander do that or something? So it's kind of fascinating going back and watching shows from 20 years ago that I loved back then, but now I look at it through a different lens, to where it's like, where do we go wrong in television development? I know there's great shows out there, don't get me wrong, like Severance is phenomenal, but I was like, we don't get to know our characters, because Buffy's a cheesy ass show. There's a lot of stuff that happens in there, you're just kind of like, huh. You know, practical effects were crappy, or they use like some really last minute CGI for like a giant snake monster, and it looks terrible. It's so dated. But I went back and watched that show, and the 6th season is the one that gets shit on so much, because that's when everything got really, really bleak and dark, and Willow became the bad guy. And I went back and watched it, and I go, this is one of the best seasons of television I've ever seen. It is so nuanced. It's so layered. The characters who've always been kind of like the sunshine and rainbows sort of characters really get punched in the face with like reality. There's depression sets in, like friendships break apart. There's tragedy. Like, it's so good, to the point where I'm like, where do we go wrong in television? And a lot of it goes back to these big corporations and pumping out so much content. But yeah, that's going to be one that I've been doing a really deep dive on. So it's going to take me a little while.
Well, that was kind of the draw with TV, right? Was these characters were supposed to feel like you knew them.
Yeah.
That was the difference between movie and TV. And nowadays, this doesn't exist. Yeah. They're just making small movies, you know, for a while.
It doesn't exist.
Have you seen Vampire Diaries?
Yeah, I watched the first few seasons. With my ex-wife was really into that show.
But I know recently I haven't seen more than a few episodes. Recently, I was like, what's a show I can watch with my mom? Like, what's maybe something she would like? So I was like, let's toss that on. So I'm a few episodes, maybe 4 or 5 episodes in. So yeah, having a good schlocky little time with it. Maybe I'll do a video on that. Maybe we'll see. But like you said, it's one of those where it's like, season 1 is 25 episodes or something crazy, you know? So we'll see.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's time,
I did, but it's been a million. I haven't watched it since it came out.
Did you ever watch Buffy?
You know, so.
Dude, I highly recommend if you ever find the time, going back and watching that, just from a horror aspect too. Like a lot of the stuff that they put into place, because the first 2 seasons were really like monster of the week, and then season 2, the way it started out, was kind of like they had Frankenstein's monster, then they had Dracula, they had the Wolfman, they incorporated a lot of the Universal themed monsters into that stuff before it really hit its stride. Midway through season 2 is when the story got really good, and that's when they kind of went that direction with the show. But it's from a horror perspective, it's really cool going back and watching it, just from a lot of the character designs, the practical effects, the makeup that they used to do to them back there, and just the character development, man, and the dialogue. I can't say enough good things about it. And it's so crazy that you're like, a show with the stupidest name ever is like, all these years later, is still fantastic. And I just saw that they're trying to, that Sarah Michelle Gellar's talking about rebooting it, and I'm like, don't do it. Just don't. It ended fine.
Dude,
like,
I think it's gonna happen.
Let's leave,
especially on top of, then I start seeing Instagram posts with Sarah Michelle Gellar like working out. She's all of a sudden starting to post like these workout videos, and I'm like, okay, this is getting, it's getting real. It's probably
a little bit,
going to happen.
Yeah. And I know Joss Whedon's basically blackballed, but without his involvement, it's going to be Chloe Zhao. She's the girl that directed the Eternals.
Okay.
It's her and Sarah Michelle rebooting it. So I'm like, yeah, really the central figure of it is,
that gets a little rough.
I don't have any hope at all. But it could prove
hope for the best, man.
Yeah. But we're just in that day and age, man. We're in that day and age. I always think of the line in Deadpool and Wolverine when they crash down. They go, "Oh wow, you're Deadpool and Wolverine or whatever," and he looks at it at Wolverine and he goes, "You're going to be doing this till you're
100%."
I'm like, that's just like every franchise now, man.
It's like, when is enough money enough, brother? Anymore. Like, God, you don't need another yacht, man. Yeah. But they're probably, some of them are doing it for the pleasure. I get it too. Just the art. I get it.
Well, man, oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, Matt, I really appreciate you hopping on today, man. This has been a blast. Let's do it again sometime. I'd love to. I love just chatting with guys that have the, similar interests, and then plus you're a horror expert.
Hey, I appreciate it, Chris. Thanks so much for having me on, man. Love your stuff. And so it's just you asking me to be on was an honor. So appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Feelings mutual, man. Cool. Well, hey,
all right, brother.
Matt, anytime, dude. I'd love to have you on again. All right, buddy. Yep.